Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons.
and good morning, and welcome to the King's Report this Thursday, April 13th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 3rd month, 17th day. By the heavenly calendar, I'm your host, Hyungji Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Let's go first to Tim, the Agent Elder, with our AccuWeather forecast for today. Tim.
Good morning. It's 45 degrees and clear outside at Cheongguk. We had those 2 days of summer, but a cold front moved through yesterday. It gave us a sprinkling of rain, but also brought the temperatures down to something closer to normal. Not quite down all the way to normal, but closer to normal. Today, it's going to get into the low 60s, and then probably in the 60s for the next couple of days, and then we'll have another blast of warm air coming through on Sunday. It'll get into the 70s again, and then back down to normal after that, according to the forecast.
Well, it was quite warm
yes, it was.
a couple of days ago. We had a wonderful training last night. We had the garage doors open so we can see the beautiful mountains around and the waning and the sun glow of the sun setting on the soft mountains, which are now blooming leaves and flowers. Here at the Cheongguk, there's a big cherry tree out here that has completely bloomed the last hot days that we've had. And so we've been very blessed with the spring coming. But looking forward to a little bit drop in temperature. That's a good thing. Okay, folks, let's go to our Rima today. And today we are in Galatians. We're in Galatians 1 and 18. This is subsection Context at Jerusalem. Then after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter and remained with him 15 days. But I saw none of the other apostles except James, the Lord's brother. Now concerning the things which I write you, indeed, before God I do not lie. Afterward I went into the regions of Syria and Cilicia, and I was unknown by face to the churches of Judea which were in Christ. But they were hearing only he who formerly persecuted us, now preaches a faith which he once tried to destroy. And they glorified God in me. Now we are here, and this is right next to a brief explanation of Galatians, key chapter, Galatians 5, in this Patriots Bible. The impact of the truth concerning freedom is amazing. Freedom must be used not as an opportunity for the flesh, but by love to serve one another. It records the power of walking in the Spirit as well as the resulting fruit of the Spirit. The Galatians who had believed in Christ by faith through the preaching of Paul are beginning to surrender their priceless liberty through a gospel of works. Paul writes this forceful epistle to do away with the false gospel of works and demonstrates the superiority of justification by faith. This is Paul's manifesto of justification by faith and the resulting liberty that no believer should ever trade away. It was the oppressive theology of certain Jewish legalizers that had caused the Galatian believers to yield their freedoms in Christ. Paul's stern warning to the Galatians is similar to that given to America by President Abraham Lincoln. America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. Now, Paul here in chapter 1 is explaining his story to Christ, recounting it. And here he's talking about Jerusalem and his visit there with Peter. And of course, we know that there was a disagreement between Peter and Paul. Peter, or the Petrine view, being of works. Paul, the Pauline view, being of justification by faith. Now, that doesn't mean that Peter continually stayed on that and he didn't believe in faith. But Paul, of course, was one of the great evangelists who spoke about liberty in Christ and by the justification of faith, as opposed to works. There was a brief description or maybe a reflective and or comparative analysis of all religions with regards to Christianity, and whether or not there is a difference between Christianity and all religions. Of course, there are many. It's commonly believed that Christianity is, or at least in the popular culture of relativism, it's commonly said that Christianity is one amongst many religions. You'll see signs that say like coexist. Guys, pull up coexist sign, and you'll see that Christianity is just one of the religions that are coexisting with others. And the relativist message here is that it's essentially the same as all religions. But there's something radically different of Christianity, or a Christ-centered worldview, than all religions. All religions other than Christ-centered Christianity see essentially a works foundation for salvation or liberation. In the Indian tradition, it's called moksha, which means liberation. Okay, and all religions see that if we do good things, we will receive good things. If we do good things and we add up good actions and good deeds in this world, we'll be reborn as a better being, or we won't be reborn into this or that realm. In Buddhism, for example, Tibetan Buddhism, there are different realms to which you can be born. So we will not be born in the animal realm. We will not be born in the hungry ghost realm. We will not be born in the hell realm. We will not be born in the Deva realm, or that's actually better. Well, Deva realm is like the gods realm, because Buddhism doesn't have an atheistic view. At least traditional Buddhism doesn't have an atheistic view of the universe, but also sees gods as being present, devas and God-like celestial beings, which essentially are seen as being in a lesser state than human beings because there's not enough pressure on them. There's not enough stress. So they get to indulge in luxury of the different heavens, etc. So they don't have the stress of the human existence, which compels one to seek enlightenment. Okay. So whatever the tradition, in Islam, for example, you do good, you follow the commands of Allah, and you do His works, and you will be placed in heaven. Of course, in Islam, it's never sure. Even though you do all the good works in the world, when you reach heaven, or when you die, nothing is certain. Your place in heaven or hell is actually not certain, and Allah will decide. So, all religions, simply put, teach you do good, you get good, you do bad, you get bad. Christianity is radically different because one does not enter heaven by doing good works, by doing good. So you may have somebody who society deems to be amazing, like this or that politician, this or that leader, who does all these charities and does incredible things that society praises all the time, and you may have this or that leader who is like the Dalai Lama, who is championed by the left. And you may have all these different people who do many, many good works, so to speak, in terms of societal framework, but in the end will not end up in heaven. Why is that? Because in Christianity, going to heaven, going to eternal peace and eternal a good place in heaven, spirit world, it's not based on our works, it's based on our relationship with God. It's a very different concept. It's not based on what you do, it's based on what you have in terms of, do you have a relationship? Do you have faith? Do you have a relationship with Christ? What do you have? Not materially, what do you have in terms of your relationship? If there is a God, if there's a creator, then it's our relationship with that creator that determines our place in heaven and hell. Isn't that interesting? It's not what we do for that creator. We do things for that creator. We do things that are good or bad. And we do things, for example, we follow his commandments, but not so that we get in heaven. We're already in heaven when we have a relationship with Christ. We're already going there. We're already getting close to him. We're already going to be close to him in the next world. So we don't do things for the sake of getting to heaven. We just like, unlike other religions where you do things to get a blessing, do things to get into heaven. In Christianity, one does things because of love, because one loves the Creator. One loves the one who saved us. You see, so the motivation for action, the motivation for deeds, and there are obviously great works in Christianity. Christianity produces tremendous works. Even when I was studying Buddhism, they had to give credit to the entire what they call social Buddhism, that is more seen in the West, with Buddhists being more like activists. And they credit that to Protestant Christianity and the great tradition of Protestant Christianity doing social activism. Because in Buddhism, it's not alive. The main doctrine of Buddhism is to leave society, is to leave your family, and to become a monk, to become monastic, to leave and go into the mountains. It's more of a reclusive tradition. It's not a socially engaged tradition. That only changes in the West after the advent and influence of Protestant Christianity. So one does not get to proximity to God by doing good works. One, and many of even the old school divine principle lecturers of the Koreans also mix this up, because many of them did not come from Christian backgrounds. Some of them came from Confucian, Buddhist backgrounds, so they did not understand this idea and this reality of justification by faith in a sense, our relationship with God. Those who understand it, like Mrs. Kang here, of course, have a totally different relationship with Christ and God. And of course, it's shown, exemplified as the great faithless epoch and era in our faith has happened with the Han Mother. It's people of faith, people who had real, true faith, real, true relationship with Christ. I'm not just saying a relationship, I know him, I, quote, pretend to follow him. No, real faith in him, real faith in that relationship, real faith in that person. That is what carried them through the heresy. And in the end, that is what allows us to get into proximity to God, and that, of course, is either heaven or hell. It's the proximity we have from God. Interesting that in today's scripture we are seeing Paul talking about his journey. And also he mentions Syria. Look at that. Syria is mentioned. A problem area of today, where of course many Christians are being beheaded because of ISIS. There's so many things in the world today, but what humanity needs is relationship with God, not religion. There's too many religions that just promote the same thing, works and self-righteousness. Justification by faith makes us humble, because it shows us that all the works in the world will never bring us to God, closeness to God. But it is our surrendering to him, in our relationship to him, and obeying his commands because we love him, that will give us true liberty, freedom, and life everlasting. We'll be right back after this short break. See you on the other side.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Let's go now to Mrs. Kong for our Holy Spirit moment in the morning. Tim.
Mrs. Khan will be speaking from John 8, 44 and 45. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar, and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. Yeah.
안녕하십니까.
Good morning, everyone.
오늘 말씀드릴 내용은 선악의 투쟁 역사라는 내용으로 말씀드리겠습니다.
Today I'd like to speak to you on the history of struggle between good and evil.
인간 시조가 타락하지 아니했다면 우리는 누구의 아들, 딸로 태어났겠습니까?
If human beings had not fallen in the beginning, whose parents would we have been born to? Who would have been our parents?
자연히 하나님의 아들, 딸로 태어났을 것입니다.
Of course, we would have been born as sons and daughters of God.
타락은 아담 해와가 하나님을 중심하고 하나 되지 못하고 하나님의 종인 천사장과 하나 된 것을 말합니다.
The fall occurred when Adam and Eve were not able to become one centering on God, but instead became one centering on the servant, the archangel.
하나님의 혈통을 이어받아야 했는데 인간이 종의 핏줄을 이어받았다는 뜻입니다.
In other words, they were, even though they were to have inherited God's lineage, they inherited the lineage of the servant instead.
그러니 오늘 타락한 인간이 아무리 하나님이라고 불러도 하나님에 대한 그 실감이 잘 나지 않습니다.
And so when human beings call out to God today, no matter how much they may call to Him, they cannot feel themselves, He cannot feel real to them.
성경 요한복음 8장 44절 이하를 보면은 너희는 너희 아비 마귀에서 났으니 너희 아비의 욕심을 너희도 행하도록 하나니라. 처음부터 저가 살인한 자니 진리가 그의 마음에 없으며 거짓말하는 자도 되고 거짓말하는 자도 아비여 되었나니라. 즉 우리는 아버지가 누구냐 하면은 마귀에게서 났다고 아주 성경은 이렇게 똑바로 지적을 했던 것입니다.
John 8:44 says that ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. So the Bible is telling us very clearly that our father is the devil.
사탄이가 우리의 아버지가 되었기 때문에 모든 것이 자기를 중심으로 한 그 생각에서 타락성 근성이 유전되었기 때문에 오늘 세상 살고 있는 사람들의 모든 만사는 어느 누구를 예외하고 다 하나님이 원치 않고 바라시지 않는 그대로의 생활을 인간은 계속하고 있는 것입니다.
So we have inherited the fallen nature of the devil. We have inherited this nature to live centering on ourselves. And so that is why things are in such a terrible state in the world today.
그래서 모두가 상충적인 존재가 되었으며 또 종족, 민족, 국가, 세계도 이제 그런 세계를 이루어 놓고 말았습니다.
We are contradictory beings in the sense that we embody a contradiction within ourselves. And not only that, but our families and our nations and the world has become that way.
이것은 왜냐하면은 시작이 사탄이 연루되었기 때문에 그렇습니다.
And this is because the beginning lies in Satan.
하나님은 여기에서 정말로 이 분립된 문화권을 이루었기 때문에 이것을 다시 회복하는 역사를 지금 시작하고 있는 것입니다.
And so now God, in order to accomplish His original ideal, is conducting a history to recover what was to have been in the first place.
시작한 것이 아니라 오랫동안 하나님은 이걸 바로 세우기 위한 복귀 섭리 역사를 해 오셨습니다.
But He did not just begin this recently. He's been doing this for a long time in the form of the history of restoration through indemnity.
그래서 우리도 가만히 생각하면은 에덴 동산에서 정말로 하나님으로부터 선으로부터 시작한 역사였더라면은 오늘 인류 사회는 세계는 이렇게 안 되었을 것인데 탄식하면서 우리가 살 때가 많이 있습니다.
So often we can think if only human beings had started their history in goodness instead of evil, the world would be not as it is today. We can think of that way, and
그래서 오늘 땅 위에는 정말로 세상이 다 지겹고 시려서 자살하는 사람들도 많이 있습니다.
so we see a lot of evil today, and we see a lot of people committing suicide today.
왜 이런 세계를 이루어 놓았느냐? 원인은 인간 시조 아담과의 타락이 연루되었기 때문에 그렇습니다.
How did the world become this way? It goes back to the fall of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
그래서 개인으로부터 시작해서 가정, 민족, 국가, 세계까지 이제는 확대되어 나와서 참으로 이 80억이나 되는 인류를 하늘 파편으로 돌려놓는다는 것은 이것은 참으로 어려운 일이라고 생각되어집니다.
The effects of that fall have been expanded through the family, the nation, and the world. And now it's an extremely difficult task to take the 8 billion population of the world and turn them towards the direction of goodness.
어디를 가봐도 하나 되고 화하는 곳이 별로 없습니다. 전부가 어떻게 되어 있느냐면은 분열이 되어 있고 싸움으로 나타나고 있으니 이것을 정말로 아버님께서는 싸움이 없는 세계, 둘 아닌 하나의 세계, 선의 세계를 이 땅 위에 창건하기 위해서 평생을 참 피땀을 흘리는 수고를 하시면서 역사해 오셨는데 다 이루놓지 못하고 가셔서 아버님께서는 마음에 참으로 많은 고충이 있을 것으로 생각되어집니다.
So Father dedicated his life to creating a world of harmony, creating a world of peace. And it must be terribly painful for him that he had to leave this earth without being able to accomplish that completely.
그런데 모두가 다 이렇게 참 하나 되지 못하고 싸움을 하고 있는데 이 싸움을 두고 보아도 악한 편이 이기는 것이지 악한 편이 이기는 것이 아니고 정말로 선한 편이 지금까지 이겨나왔습니다.
So the world is in the midst of many struggles everywhere we see. But we see, though, that now the side of goodness is winning in those struggles.
그러면 무엇으로 선한 편과 악한 편을 판별할 수 있겠습니까?
So how are we to know which is the side of goodness and which is the side of evil?
결론적으로 말하면은 먼저 공격한 쪽이 악한 편입니다.
To put it simply, the side that strikes first is the side of evil.
왜냐하면은 먼저 치는 쪽이 악이 되었기 때문에 그렇습니다.
And that is because in the beginning, the side that struck first was the side of evil.
원래 이 우주에 선이 먼저 출발하지 않고 악이 먼저 출발했기 때문에 이런 결과가 지금 나오는 것입니다.
In the universe, it was not goodness that began first, but the evil began first. And so that is the result that we see today.
인류 시조 아담 해와가 가만히 있는데 사탄이 먼저 쳤고 하나님이 가만히 계시는데 사탄이 친 입장이 되었습니다.
Adam and Eve were not doing anything out of line, but Satan struck first. And God was not doing anything out of line, but Satan struck first.
역사를 살펴보면은 심편이 이기는 것이 아니라 반드시 먼저 침편이 져왔습니다.
We see in history that the side that strikes first is the side that eventually loses.
하나님께서 공격받는 편에 서 계심으로 그렇게 되어 있습니다.
God stands on the side of the side that is attacked, that receives the attack.
그렇기 때문에 하나님 편에, 하늘 편에, 선한 편에 있는 사람은 가만히 있어야 한다는 것입니다.
And that is why those people on the side of goodness must keep their position.
이런 견지에서 하나님께서 걸어왔던 역사 노정을 우리가 살펴보면 하나님은 맞으면서도 참는 때가 있었다는 것입니다.
And so we see that God, in many cases, had to endure being struck.
무고하게 개인적으로 맞고 참으면은 참게 되면은 나중에 가서 손해배상을 청구할 수도 있습니다.
If a person endures and allows himself to be struck, then later on he can sue for damages.
개인적으로 참고 가정적으로 종족적으로 민족적으로 세계적으로 참고 나아간다고 하면은 이제 얼마 안 가서 이 땅 위에는 하나님이 세우시고자 원하셨던 그 세계, 하나님이 바라시고 원한 세계는 천일국인데 이 하늘의 세계를 이 천국을 이 땅 위에 창건할 수 있을 것으로 생각되어집니다.
If we can do this, I think we can establish Cheonryuk in the world through that process.
그래서 참고 나가게 되면은 마지막에는 반드시 이기게 된다는 것을 우리는 생각해야 되겠습니다.
So we need to realize that if we endure, then we can win in the end.
그래서 마지막에는 참아왔던 그 결과 손해배상을 청구할 수 있습니다.
So in the end, we'll be able to receive the result of our endurance, and that is that we'll be able to sue for damages.
개인적으로, 가정적으로, 민족적으로 참 전 세계적으로 손해배상을 청구하면서 정말로 승리의 계가를 부를 수 있는 길도 있을 것입니다.
And then one day we'll be able to sue the damages on the individual level, the family level, the national level, and even on the world level, so that we will be able to sing the songs of victory.
사탄은 공격자의 조상입니다. 하나님은 이러한 일을 수습하는 최고의 책임을 지고 계시는 것입니다.
Satan is the ancestor of those who attack, and God is on the side of those who resolve
만약에
those attacks, resolve those conflicts.
만약에 공격한 편이 이기게 되면 하나님은 그 이상의 강한 무리를 세워서라도 멸하시는 역사가 나타날 것입니다.
Even if the side of evil wins, God establishes a group of people who are even stronger in order to carry forward His providence.
이러한 관점에서 사탄은 공격하고 빼앗기고 하나님은 공경을 받고 잃었던 모든 것을 찾아 나올 수 있다는 결론이 나옵니다.
So Satan attacks and takes things, and God, on the other hand, endures the attacks, and then but is able to recover everything that he loses.
이러한 내용이 사실인가 아닌가 알아볼 때에 1차 세계대전 때에도 독일이 먼저 전쟁을 일으켰습니다.
So, for example, we see that in the First World War, Germany first started the world war.
하나님은 공격받고 찾아온다는 것입니다.
But God's side receives the attack and then recovers later on.
1차 대전에 정말로 이 전쟁에 독일이 지고 싶지 않았습니다만은 천리 원칙이 어떻게 되느냐 하면은 먼저 쳤기 때문에 그 나라는 질 수밖에 없었는데 사실 그렇게 되었던 것입니다.
So Germany did not want to lose that war, but there was the heavenly principle, the heavenly law, which said that the side that struck first would be the loser.
2차 대전 때의 일본도 역시 마찬가지입니다.
And the same was true with Japan in the Second World War.
하나님은 공의의 심판관이시기 때문에 일본이 아무리 강하다 하더라도 지게 되어 있는 것입니다.
God is a judge, righteous judge, and so no matter how strong Japan might have been, it was determined from the beginning that it would lose.
그래서 우리는 정말로 가정을 이루어놓고 사는데 타락된 후손이기 때문에 참 편안한 가정이 없고 개인에서부터 가정, 종족, 민족, 국가, 세계가 다 오늘 혼란을 겪고 있으며 싸움을 하고 있으며 하나 되어 있지 못하는 것 하나님 보실 때에 얼마나 참 마음 아프시고 괴로우시며 우리 아버님께서도 얼마나 내가 원하고 바라고 이루어 놓으려고 했던 세계는 그것이 아닌데 딴 것이 나타났기 때문에 참 지금 고충을 느끼고 계실 줄 압니다.
We form families today, we form nations, and we have formed a world, but this is not the kind of world that God wanted, not the kind of families or nations that the kind of God wanted. How much a father must feel pain in the spirit world now, thinking to himself, this is not what I had in mind.
그런데 이러한 핏줄을 타고났기 때문에 타락의 후손은 아무리 돌을 닦고 아무리 기도하고 정성을 들인다 손치더라도 역시 결국 마지막에 가서는 참말로 좋지 않는 그 역사가 좋지 않은 일이 벌어지는 것입니다.
But we are the descendants of evil, the descendants of the devil. And that is why no matter how much spiritual training we may do, no matter how much we may try, the result cannot be good.
아버님께서도 말씀하셨습니다. 참 사람이 사는 것을 볼 때에 어떻게 저렇게 악한 마음을 가지고 살까? 어떻게 저렇게 가정이 불화하고 살까? 이런 것을 놓고 생각할 때에 내가 이 세상을 한번 뜯어고치며 다시 만들어 놓아야 되겠다는 그런 생각을 하셨다고 들었습니다.
And I heard from others that Father would say that how can that person have such an evil mind, such an evil heart? How can that family be in such discord? How can they live that way? And he would often say, I have to just take this world apart and put it back together again the way it should be.
아버님께서 그래서 참으로 언제나 축복 가정을 바라다 오시며 무슨 말씀을 하시는고 하면은 어떻게 재미가 좋으냐? 너희들은 싸우지 않고 사느냐고 말씀하실 때가 많았던 것입니다.
That's why when Father would meet a blessed couple, he would often ask them, how are you? Are you getting along well? Are you fighting?
그래서 이제 우리에게 남아져 있는 것은 무엇이냐면은 하나님께서 처음 지으셨던 그 본연의 세계, 처음 지었던 타락이 없는 그 세계를, 타락 전, 죄 짓기 전 세계를 이 땅 위에 우리가 이루어놓고 정말로 선한 세계로구나, 정말로 하나의 세계였구나, 아버지의 세계였구나, 아버지의 나라였구나 하면서 살 수 있는 그 세계를 우리가 살고 있는 이 땅 위에 우리가 세워놓고 가야 될 책임이 우리들에게 있을 것입니다.
So I think we have the responsibility to establish that world that existed before the entrance of evil, to have a world that is where people can live in harmony with each other without discord.
아버님은 그 와중에서도 제가 1982년도에 미국에를 갔어요. 그랬더니 그 고기 잡는 그 그물을 아버님이 만지고 계시면서 하시는 말씀이 뭐라고 하셨느냐 하면은 지금 세상에는 굶어서 죽어가는 사람들이 많은데 이 문제를 어떻게 해결할 것인가 생각을 많이 하셨답니다.
I came to the United States once in 1982 and met Father, and he happened to be working on some fishing nets. And he said to me, as I'm working on these nets, I think how many people are dying of hunger in the world every day, and I want to be able to feed them.
그래서 저는 그때 생각했어요. 아버님은 고기 잡으시는 것이 참 하나의 큰 취미를 가지고 잡으신다 생각을 했는데 그 생각이 금방 끝나자마자 하시는 말씀이 내가 고기 잡이를 하는 거는 무슨 취미로서 하는 것이 아니라고 무엇이냐 하면은 이 땅 위에 정말로 아버님이 살아계실 때에 이 민족을 내가 굶어 죽는 사람이 많은데 이 민족을 내가 살리지 않으면 아니 되겠다는 생각을 하루도 몇 번씩 하시고 계신다고 말씀했습니다.
I thought to myself, I thought Father was just fishing as a kind of a hobby. And as soon as I thought that, he said to me, I'm not fishing as a kind of a hobby. I'm doing this so that I can feed the world. And he often told himself throughout the day that he has to find a way to feed the world.
내가 고기잡이를 하는 것은 왜 하느냐 하면은 정말로 오늘 굶어서 죽어가는 사람이 많은 이때에 내가 이들을 정말로 배불리 먹이면서 이들에게 살 수 있는 길을 열어주기 위해서 내가 전 세계 전 생애를 내가 바치면서 내가 이걸 하고 있다고 말씀했어요.
He said that I'm doing this so that I can have enough food, I could create enough food so that all the world can fill its bellies. All the people can fill their bellies, and that we can open the way for people to receive salvation.
그래서 아버님은 참 제가 그 생각을 하자마자 취미로 하시는 것이 아니라는 말씀을 듣고 아버님은 모든 것을 아시는 분이로구나. 과거를 아시고 현재를 아시고 미래를 아시고 우리 조상들을 아시고 전부를 다 아시고 계시는 분이라는 것을 그때에서는 또 깨달았던 것입니다.
That was another opportunity for me to realize that Father could read my thoughts, because I had only thought to myself, oh, I guess he wasn't doing this as a hobby, and he immediately spoke about that. And I realized again that he knows the past, that he knows the present, and he knows the future.
굶고 있는 이들을 내가 살려주기 위해 그래서 지금 파우다를 만드셔서 공급해 주려고 하신다 하면서 아주 참 굶고 있는 그들을 살려준다는 거기에 아주 아버님은 희망에 차서 그물을 만지시고 계셨던 생각이 납니다.
I remember how Father, as he was fixing the nets, was telling me about his plan to manufacture, produce fish powder so that people could have that in order to survive and not starve.
또 더 나아가서 세계 인류의 식량 문제를 위하여 아버님은 정말로 걱정을 많이 하시고 내가 조금이라도 보탬이 될 수 있다면 이걸 해야 되겠다고 해서 아버님이 파우더 만드는 그 얘기를 저는 많이 들었습니다.
And I remember him talking often about this project to produce fish powder. He would just say that if I can help in even a small way to feed the world, this will be worth it.
그래서 저는 그때 생각했어요. 참으로 아버님은 정말로 인류의 아버지로 오신 분이었고 모든 인류가 다 같이 하나 되어 손을 잡고 정말로 위하여 살 수 있는 그 세계를 빨리빨리 이루어 놓아야 되겠다는 희망에 불어 계시는 모습을 본 적이 있습니다.
I realized that the Father really was had come as the Father of the entire humanity, and that he was trying to establish, doing everything he could to establish a world where everyone could live in harmony.
그래서 오늘 우리들은 정말로 아버님께서 민족을 위하고 나라를 위하고 세계를 위해서 지금도 영계에서 기도하시고 계시며 더 나아가서 지금도 오늘 이 한 땅 위에 변화된 천국을 이루어 놓은 모습을 보기 위해서 애타하시고 계신다는 것을 생각할 때 우리는 아버님이 바라시고 원하신 그 뜻과 그 세계를 하루속히 이 땅 위에 우리가 건립하는 일을 하지 않으면 안 되겠습니다.
Even now, even today, Father is praying in spirit world. He's praying for the establishment of that kind of a world. And it's our responsibility to accomplish that.
참으로 많이 이루어 놓고 갔었어요. 오늘 돌이켜보면 아버님께서 박해를 많이 받으시고 핍박을 많이 받으셨어요. 세계의 종교 지도자로서 아버님만큼 참으로 박해를 받고 핍박을 받으신 분은 없습니다. 그렇지만은 아버님은 그것을 참으로 어떻게 생각하시느냐면 기어코 내가 생각하고 원하고 염원했던 그 세계를 이루어 놓아야 된다는 이 희망에 부풀어 계셨습니다.
Father accomplished a tremendous amount while he was in the physical world. He received incredible persecution. He received more persecution than anyone. But he continued to work in spite of that in order to do everything he could to accomplish God's will.
문매를 맞으시고 감옥에를 몇 번이 6번이나 왔다 갔다 하시면서도 아버님은 하나도 여기에 굴하지 않고 기어코 이루시고자 원하셨던 그 뜻과 그 세계를 보고 가시려고 애타 하셨던 것입니다.
Father was beaten, he was imprisoned 6 times, but no matter what happened, he maintained his determination to accomplish God's will.
아버님의 그 정성을 우리가 보아서라도 참으로 이 땅 위에 정말로 천일국을 세워놓고 아버님께서 기뻐하고 즐거워하시면서 이제 내가 이루려고 했던 세계를 다 이루었다 하시면서 늘 하시는 말씀이 이 땅 위에 천국을 이뤄놓고 같이 기뻐하고 즐거워하고 살면 얼마나 좋겠느냐는 말씀을 하신 것을 보면은 우리들이 정말로 아버님의 그 심정을 알고 거기에 맞추어 드리는데 우리들의 모든 전력을 여기에다가 투자해야 하겠습니다.
We need to remember Father's sincerity and dedication and his sense of urgency. And we need to work with that kind of urgency in order to accomplish God's kingdom on this earth.
이제는 이대 왕도 세우시고 또 더 나아가서 후계자, 상속자 이렇게 다 세우셨어요. 세우셨기 때문에 아버님은 안심하시고 빨리 이 후계자, 상속자를 통해서 이 땅 위에 아버님이 찾고자 원하셨던 세계, 이루시고자 원하셨던 세계를 빨리빨리 이 땅 위에 참으로 우리가 건국해 놓아야 될 책임이 있습니다.
Father has established his successor, the second king, and his inheritor, and it is our responsibility to work with the second king in order to accomplish God's kingdom now.
아버님께서 기도하신 내용을 보았는데 어떻게 기도를 하셨느냐 하면은 그 대구 제일 어려운 동네에서 아버님이 방 한 칸에서 지나시면서 기도를 어떤 기도를 하셨는가 하면은 하나님 아버지 나와 약속한 내용이 있는데 내가 아직도 그 세계를 이뤄놓지 못하고 아직도 그 세계가 요원합니다. 하나님 도와주십시오 하시면서 떨면서 기도하셨던 몸부림치시면서 기도하셨던 그 내용을 생각할 때에 정말로 오늘 우리들은 그 아버님의 마음에 아버님의 뜻에 아버님의 심정에 맞는 그 자리에서 오늘 이 땅 위에 정말로 아버님이 세우시고자 원하셨던 처음 타락하기 전 본연의 그 세계를 이 땅 위에 하루속히 이루어놓는 이 일을 위해서 우리가 기도하고 이 일을 위해서 우리가 일선에 서야 되겠습니다.
I remember Father in the early days, he was praying in Daegu, where we had just a small room. And he was praying, and he would weep, and he would shake. His body would shake as he would pray. And he would say, "God, I made a promise to you, but I'm sorry that I have not yet been able to accomplish that which I promised to you. God, please help us." And he was investing his total being into accomplishing the work that he had promised God to do.
아버님은 그 세계를 많이 동경하고 정말로 하루속히 그날이 오기를 하루속히 그때가 오기를 얼마나 염원하시고 기다리시고 계셨습니다. 우리는 그 심정을 알고 정말로 아버님이 하루속히 이루어지기를 바랐던 그대로 우리들도 하나가 되어서 정말로 그 세계를 이루어놓지 않으면 안 될 것입니다.
Father looked forward so much to that world that was going to be accomplished. And he had such a strong sense of urgency. And we also have to work in that way in order to accomplish this world for God.
지금 우리가 핍박을 받는다고 하지만은 정말로 아버님이 받으셨던 그 핍박과 그 어려움에 비하면은 아무것도 아니라는 것을 저는 잘 알고 있습니다.
We are being persecuted, but it is nothing compared to the persecution that our father received. I understand that, my own case.
그래서 타락하기 전 그 세계를 정말로 이루어 놓았을 때 아버님께서 얼마나 기뻐하시고 얼마나 정말로 만족해 하실 것이다 생각할 때에 우리가 그 세계를 하루라도 빨리 이루어 놓는 여기에 전력을 쏟아 기울여 해도 부족을 느끼면서 하는 우리들이 되어야 되겠습니다.
Think of how much joy it will bring God, how much joy it will bring Father, and how much satisfaction it will bring Father when that world is finally accomplished. When we think of that, we have to invest ourselves completely in that effort to accomplish that world.
이제는 아버님 대신자를 세우셨다 이렇게 생각할 때에 정말로 우리는 흐뭇해요. 왜 그러냐 하면은 아버님의 대신자요. 아버님의 정말로 후계자요. 또 더 나아가서 상속자라고 생각할 때는 아버님께서는 영계에 계시지만은 흐뭇하게 생각하실 것입니다.
It brings us so much joy that Father has established His representative body, His successor, and His inheritor. Because in that way, Father can rest easy to know that this work will be accomplished on earth.
그래서 이대 왕으로서 정말로 우리가 많은 기대를 걸고 있으니까 이대 왕으로서 후계자, 상속자, 대신자로서의 정말로 하나가 되어 우리가 이루어 놓을 때에 아버님이 얼마나 상하다고 보시고 계실 줄 알고 또 이루어졌다고 보실 줄 압니다. 우리는 그래서 하루속히 그 세계를 그때를 우리가 빨리 이 땅 위에 우리가 건립하는 것을 우리도 소망으로 알고 그렇게 했으면 좋겠다고 생각이 되어집니다. 고맙습니다.
So let's work as one with the second king in order to accomplish that world. Let's make Father's hope our hope and His desire our desire in order to accomplish this as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
And we'll be right back after this short break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Tell me who will be like Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. It's not us who will be like Jesus to the least of these. If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjae Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. And let's look at Fox News and the top news on Fox News today. Morning brief. North Korea preparing for sixth nuclear test, says monitoring group. Again, North Korea is making headlines again. Top news again. North Korea defiant. Pyongyang may conduct nuke tests in the face of U.S. military moves. Japan says North Korea may be capable of sarin-tipped missiles. Trump says China took big step in sending coal ships back to North Korea. Trump says Russia relations may be at all-time low. Praises Tillerson trip. Video. Peters warns Trump, don't get fooled by China on North Korea. China's Xi tells Trump he wants peaceful solution to North Korea. Immigration reversal. Michigan Capitol changes course on sanctuary status. White House reportedly has plans in place to build up deportation force. Video. Sanctuary City advocates blasts NYPD for working with ICE. AG Attorney General Sessions vows to confront cartels gangs on visit to U.S.-Mexico border. Wrangled in at last. Marshals, last of cocaine cowboys arrested in Florida. Exclusive Fast and Furious scandal, suspected triggerman in border agent's murder arrested. Alleged Mexican drug lord wins appeal to delay extradition. Officer charged with shooting autistic man's caretaker. And on the O'Reilly factor, Spicer's Trump values Bannon's commitment. Media buzz. Spicer sincerely apologized for mistake, but arrogant United was dragged into apology. Hannity says there is a new sheriff in town and the world is beginning to take notice. Hannity and Morgan, Trump showed press he isn't Russia's poodle. The first 100 days, Senator Perdue on Syria. We've got to stop ISIS, and that's job one. In latest news on Fox News, Trump says Russia relations may be at all-time low, praises Tillerson, etc. Watch as mayor reconsider sanctuary police policy after Tucker appearance. Bellwether, Francis Trump stirs the pot, just like Donald. Clogged by police to massage parlor raid. United Airlines will reimburse passengers from flight when man was dragged off. Perina and Starwalk podcast, I'll tell you what, lots of ins and lots of outs. Top Republican asks Attorney General to review IRS Lois Lerner's case. St. Louis sues NFL teams over Rams relocation to Los Angeles. Todd Starnes, college to review professors Trump must hang tweets. UN draft resolution on Syria attack vote fails with Russia. China abstains. Russia says U.S. missile strike on Syria broke the law. Video of UN saying UN fails to pass resolution condemning Syria chemical attack. The most bizarre methods to smuggle drugs. Motorcycle rider beheaded in San Bernardino freak accident. GOP representative calls for Spicer's resignation after Hitler comments. Florida tow truck driver dies after falling off overpass while assisting dangling truck on I-95. Paul Manafort new report on Ukraine ties totally misleading and incorrect. Arrest made in shooting death of Chicago judge. Wife of Texas church. Bus driver killed in crash found dead at home. And Florida police officer charged in shooting of autistic man's caretaker. That is the news on Fox News. Let's go first to Paul Joseph Watson's new video about Sweden. Let's take a look at this video.
Media and all those lefty-lovey celebrities laughed at me for warning about mass immigration and Sweden. Yeah, well, it's not so funny now, is it? 4 people were killed and 15 injured when a rejected asylum seeker drove a truck into a crowd of people in Stockholm. The culprit, a 39-year-old ISIS supporter, was ordered to be deported 4 months ago, yet remained in the country. If not for this hero who forced the terrorist to crash by driving into his path, hundreds more could have been killed. Acknowledging the total disaster that allowing in hundreds of thousands of refugees has been, Sweden's Prime Minister said, Sweden will never go back to the mass migration we had in autumn 2015. Never. Well, it's too friggin' late now, isn't it? Everyone's virtually forgotten about this already, because terrorism is the new normal in Europe. The terrorists have won. Leftists think that going on with business as usual and allowing in untold millions more migrants is courageous. It's not courageous, it's cowardice. It's normalizing terrorism. Because they'd rather be dead than, God forbid, be called a racist. Strange, isn't it, how people aren't being mowed down by lorries in Japan, in Hungary, in the Czech Republic. Only in countries that have imported huge numbers of migrants that share certain beliefs. Some kind of connection there. Can't quite put my finger on it. Sweden, the most progressive, pro-refugee, pro-Islam country in the entire West. A country that isn't involved in any Middle Eastern wars. And it still got attacked by an Islamic terrorist. Progressives, your submission will not protect you. I was right about Sweden. Trump was right.
Sweden, they took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
The migrant residents of Rinkeby pelted police officers with stones while they were trying to arrest one of the terror suspects. Oh, but no-go zones don't exist. They're a conspiracy theory. Really? Is that why Post Nord just announced that they were going to stop delivering mail in Hulster, just down the road from Rinkeby, because it's, quote, not safe? Rinkeby, the same suburb journalist Tim Pool was told by police to leave or he'd be attacked. attacked. The same suburb where an Australian film crew was attacked. And notice how the media treats victims of Islamic terrorism compared to how they treat victims in other situations. How many times did they show you the picture of the dead boy on the Turkish beach? How about the child victims of the chemical weapons attack in Syria? Lots of times, right? Okay, how about the dismembered child victim of the Stockholm attack? No, they didn't show you that, did they? Did they show you the bodies of the 10 dead children after the Nice attack? No. Did they show you the dead children after the attack on Christians in Egypt? No. Isn't it an amazing coincidence how we only see the bodies of dead kids when there's an agenda to be sold? CNN's really keen on giving a platform to a 7-year-old girl who's being used as a mouthpiece to sell the invasion of Syria.
Bana, do you blame President Assad for this?
Yes.
What is your message to President Assad?
I am very sad.
Jake Tapper wants you to follow her on Twitter. Are they going to give a voice to the children of parents massacred by Islamic terrorists on the streets of Europe? Yeah, don't hold your breath. Sweden's new feminist leader wants to ban deportations altogether, even of rapists, because Sweden is a racist society. Yeah, so racist that she, a black woman from Uganda, was just elected to lead a major political party. But don't worry, because left-wing newspaper Aftonbladet has a solution. Stop importing hundreds of thousands of Muslim migrants? No. Ban cars from big cities. And the mayor of Stockholm says Sweden will defeat terrorists by thinking of kindness and openness. Oh, you mean like the openness that allowed 150 ISIS terrorists to cross back into Sweden? Yeah. Good luck with that.
And there's Paul Joseph Watson's new viral video on mass immigration and multiculturalism not working. It's amazing. It's just so amazing how unbelievable these leftists are in their cultish world. They're just in a little bubble. Just think happy thoughts, and it'll go away. Just surrender to an oppressive takeover force, and they'll be nice to us.
Sweden is already beyond the point of no return. It's no hope.
I mean, it's so sad. It's so pathetic. I like what he said. He said, terrorism is now the new normal in Europe.
Yes.
And surrendering their belief that they was by surrendering to multiculturalism in this whole idealism or in this cult of multiculturalism,
Yes.
wishing or pretending that the world has no real danger, and just believing in this pipe dream of a lie that all peoples, all civilizations, and all ideologies are the same, is just opening them up to so much unbelievable strife and the destruction of their own country. Very, very sad. But it is what they deserve because they are electing politicians who are continuing to propel them into the new normal in Europe. Now on politics, inside Bannon's struggle from shadow president to Trump's marked man. This is also top news on Drudge today. One of the top news on the left-hand side of Drudge. This is by the WAPO. When Stephen Bannon reported for work Wednesday, he did not act like a man who had just been publicly humiliated by his boss. The White House chief strategist cycled in and out of the Oval Office for meetings with President Trump and took a seat in the front row of the East Room for an afternoon visit of NATO Security General, flanked by some of the very advisors with whom he has been feuding. But for Bannon, the day's routine obscured the reality that he is a marked man, diminished by weeks of battles with the bloc of centrists, led by Trump's daughter and son-in-law, and cut down by the president himself, who belittled Bannon in an interview with the New York Post. The bloc of centrists here is what they're referring to as Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner, who is cozying up to some of the most powerful, leftists as they wine and dine with them and use them as, there's a saying that you are only as strong as your weakest link. And Ivanka, the rich the rich girl, again, is proving to be the weak link. There's something about rich girls. I tell you, Tim, there's something about rich girls that just makes them such slaves to the establishment. It's very sad. But she's proving to be the weak link in that family. And the leftists are targeting her, seeing her as the weak link into the White House and influencing the White House. Of course, not on the leftists, but the sympathizers of the Republican rhinos are also targeting her and Kushner, because he's also a little beta male New York elitist. And what they're talking about as centrist is really leaning more to the left, is what they're talking about. They're not talking about...
If Washington Post says you're centrist, you know you're pretty far to the left. Yeah.
You know you're basically left. I mean, they've been lifelong Democrats, okay? They've been voting Democrat their whole lives, these two. And Washington Post is calling them centrist, which means they're leftist. And no reason why Bannon, there's no surprise why Bannon would be arguing with them. But of course, Ivanka and Kushner seem to be able to be gaining in the balance of power in the White House. But for Bannon, the day's routine, okay, the president's comments were described by the White House officials as a dressing down and warning shot. The one Bannon friend reflecting on them Wednesday likened Bannon to a terminally ill family member who had been moved into hospice care. The man not long ago dubbed the shadow president with singular influence over Trump's agenda and workings of the federal government is struggling to keep his job with his portfolio reduced and his profile damaged, according to interviews Wednesday and with 21 of Trump's aides, confidants and allies. Some colleagues described Bannon as a stubborn recluse who had failed to build a reservoir of goodwill within the West Wing. Unfortunately, Kushner and Ivanka, who are somewhat pandering to their New York social class and their New York social circles, which are, of course, super leftist, super liberal, progressive lunatics, who are whining and dining them. There was news out last week that they were getting dinner brought to them by Google president and different leftist-leaning, lobby groups and or CEOs that are trying to say, hey, Ivanka, hey, Jared, your dad and your father-in-law's acting a little this and that. We really feel that he's really kind of, so belligerent against, good people who are just trying to do their thing. Of course, I mean their circles of influence and allies with and friends who are friends with Ivanka and Kushner, who of course are that New York, super elite class, that very leftist communist class, very, very, first class citizen elitist, seeing the normal person as not as, as kind of sheeple and dumb. And that's a very different thing. That's a different thing with Trump. Trump had to build his empire from nothing. He had to build his empire from working from the ground up. He had to build his empire with working with the people that helped him build his towers, etc. And he appreciates the normal man. He appreciates the blue-collar worker, who many of these elitists see as these dirty sort of necessities, these kind of sweaty necessities that are necessary for building their little empires. And you have this girl who's been spoiled into richness. And, of course she's running, the Trump empire and she's doing those kind of things. And of course she's been on the ground, with the blue-collar workers, etc. But there's something about her which doesn't make me believe that she's like Eric or Donald Jr., who actually, can get down and dirty. I mean, Eric, for example, can get down there. He goes hunting. He can get down and dirty and, hang out with very blue-collar people. There's something about Ivanka, even the way she comes across. She comes across as this elitist. She comes across as this Ivy League educated, I don't know if she is educated, but this kind of aura of snobbishness, an aura of entitlement. an aura of this arrogant, you know, sort of secretly arrogant, rich white girl who does not appreciate the normal, sweaty, you know, blue-collar working man. Does not see that person as a critical aspect to society.
She's a graduate of the important school of business, University of Pennsylvania.
UPenn. Okay, there she is an Ivy. She is an Ivy. But there's something about her whenever she comes across. I mean, she was great along the campaign trail, where she, you know, sort of tried to open Trump's base. But, you know, and she spoke about, you know, women's rights and things like that. You know, but she's coming across now as she gets more and more powerful in the White House. She's becoming, evolving, and sort of rearing herself, her head, into something that the American voter did not vote for. And she is clearly going against Bannon, who was the real organizer behind Trump's, and Trump himself. He's always been, from 9/11, he was saying, from the very beginning of 9/11, he was saying that is no way that's done by planes. He was saying from the very beginning that's structural, you cannot take out steel like that. I build steel skyscrapers. I mean, Trump has for a long time been a nationalist, been one who said American sovereignty is critical. It is not only his children. I can't just lump them all into one salad, you know, say they're all the same. No, Ivanka is the one. She is the weak link. She is the one who is easily being wooed and cozied up to by the liberal, lunatic, New York City elitist left, who of course want total establishment power, want total centralized power. They are completely archangelic in their nature. They may not necessarily be Satanists worshiping Satan, but they are certainly political Satanists. And that is her circle of influence, which is starting to infect the White House, turning it into this virus house filled with betrayal of the American people who voted Trump in because he stood for something different. He stood for the normal man and the normal woman, whom the Founding Fathers all stood for, by the way. The Founding Fathers stood for the normal man and woman. They didn't stand for the elites. But Trump, of course, even though he's a billionaire, he is a blue-collar billionaire. He stands for the normal man. I mean, look at what he's doing with TPP, bringing American jobs in. I mean, hundreds of thousands of new jobs coming in, pouring in, about over 1,000 companies now agreeing to come make in $3 trillion rise in the stock trade, closing the borders, protecting the American labor pool. I mean, he's just doing tremendous things for the normal blue-collar worker. And we have to understand, even though the white-collar workers are so entitled, it is the blue-collar worker that builds an industrialized nation. If you want a modernized state, you need to have a strong blue-collar worker class, and a blue-collar worker class which can rise up to be a middle class is critical. You can't get away with just office work. You have to have strong construction workers, strong machining workers, strong manufacturing workers. I mean, these are all blue-collar workers. These are the bedrock of civilization and the bedrock of an industrialized nation, or what we call a modernized nation. Key to cheap energy is also blue-collar workers. And this is what is so problematic with these second-generation elitists who are billionaires and in billionaires' families. They don't understand or appreciate the blue-collar worker because they've been spoiled. They've just been spoiled. They've been around only white-collar workers. They've only seen their dad and his executives. They've only been around the dad and his lawyers. And sometimes they go down to the field and help with construction work in the Trump Towers, but they're surrounded by the executive managers. They're surrounded by the white-collar workers. They're surrounded by the accountants, the lawyers, the secretaries, all these kind of things, all these kind of people. And that's their bubble of people that they appreciate. They don't see beyond that white-collar bubble and see the blue-collar worker who has to grind on the ground, who has to grind in machining, who has to grind with their tools, who has to grind with their, putting up the steel edifices, who have to grind with putting in the electric work, who have to grind with putting in the plumbing, who have to grind. I mean, these people are the bedrock of a civilization. And you have to help those people reach upper middle class to be a truly powerful superpower. You have to let the majority of those people become upper middle class. That's what America did. That's what the founding fathers stood for, the blue collar worker. See, this, we don't usually see that. We think that America becomes the world of executives. No, yes, executives are critical. They are important. But real successful executives always appreciate, always value their blue collar worker. The blue collar worker is the bedrock of a industrializing nation. You can't get your oil if you don't have the blue collar worker. You can't get your machining done if you don't have the blue collar worker. You can't get your manufacturing done if you don't have the blue collar worker. You can't get automobiles built if you don't have the blue collar worker. You can't get your, it is the bedrock of an industrialized nation. People just don't get this. The blue collar worker is such a valuable citizen. Look, the blue collar worker is not a welfare pimp. The blue collar worker is not a lazy bum. The blue collar worker is there ready to grind to feed his family. That is a valuable man. And of course, when you look at the labor statistics on women, women choose not to do blue collar work. So it's predominantly men. These are very valuable men. These are men that should be respected in our civilization, in our community. But many times they are given the short end of the stick because of the executives. Because the executives seem like they're doing everything. And of course, the executives are important. But executives that don't value their blue collar workers, look at Kook Jung. Look at him, right? He's in machining. Look at him. He just appreciates and he just like uplifts his blue collar workers because he's in machining. He's in firearm production. He's in manufacturing. Of course, manufacturing literally is the bedrock of a modernized state. It's the bedrock. And it's so critical to respect our blue collar workers who are predominantly like 90, what is it? It's like 98% men. Let's look up that statistic. The blue collar worker is predominantly men. But they're mocked by Hollywood. They're mocked by the elitists. They're mocked by the centralists. They're mocked by the elite class. And this is the problem, especially with these second generation billionaires. Yes, they understand the blue collar workers there, but still they're in this circles of these super elite rich classes, Ivy League classes, where they're basically whining and dining all the time, and their normal meal is at the Four Seasons, okay? Their normal meal is like, and they're like, oh, I need to complain to this waitress because it only helps them. They're in this sort of moral posturing, fake justification, and they don't appreciate the construction steel worker. They think they're being compassionate because they think they appreciate a waitress. Okay, a waitress is obviously an important part of the service industry, but that's not what you consider a blue collar worker. A blue collar worker is somebody like a construction man. A blue collar worker is somebody who grinds and gets covered in oil as they're doing manufacturing. A blue collar worker is a coal miner who's risking their lungs to dig into the ground and retrieve coal. A blue collar worker is somebody who's ready to drill for oil and get all filthy. What was that, Tim? You got it?
Yes, I have a statistic. Laborers are 78% men, operatives are 76%, and production and craft 91% men.
91%, look at that. In some fields in the 70s and in the high 70s.
Laborers are 78% men and 22% women. Operatives are 76% men and 24% women.
And what was that last one with 91%?
91% is a production and craft.
Production and craft, so is that manufacturing?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so again, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. That is the bedrock of, and so their statistics are very clear. Women choose to go into fields which they have more natural skills for, like the service industry, hotel, service-oriented things where you're dealing with other people. You're not just sitting there doing one thing over and over and over and over. Most women don't see that as as exciting or stimulating. But it's not about exciting or stimulating. It's just these men who are given the short end of the stick who really grind it out. You know, if you train fighting arts, you will train and get sweaty, and you will sweat over, and you will train with people, and these people will become your warrior brothers and sisters. It's like going to the army. When you go to like the fight training, you will have to train with people from these backgrounds. Predominantly, it's for people from these backgrounds. Predominantly, when you do real fighting training, your training partners will be from these backgrounds: construction, manufacturing, tough guys. Guys that didn't go into gangsterhood, but they're tough and they're strong. But they didn't go into gangsterhood, but they went to pursue hard work, for they're willing to put their body at great risk and great taxing their body to feed their family. Because that's what you have to do in fighting too. You have to tax your body, you have to put it on the line to get good. So it's that same kind of dynamic. And usually people who are in the elitist circles are not willing to put their body in that level of risk. And so that's why when you do the fighting arts, and that's why in Cheongguk it's so important that the kings also train fighting arts and are masters of the fighting arts, because you will always, many of your training partners will be from that working class, because they are the toughest guys. If you want tougher training partners, you will have to pursue guys who come from those backgrounds, eventually becoming very tough. Like George St. Pierre was a construction worker. He's a super MMA fighter, one of the best in history. He was a construction worker. Because they're putting their body at harm's way and their body at risk, that mentality then translates into high-level, mixed martial arts, high-level fighting. It's the same mentality, whereas if you're always protected and you're in these elitist circles and you, oh my gosh, that's so dangerous. You're not going to get into those things. That's why Peace Police Militia is so important, because it helps all citizens recognize and learn the consciousness, learn that mentality of being willing and able to put your body at risk for somebody else and or to improve yourself. That's why it unlocks your epigenetics and makes you stronger. This is what every person growing up in primitive or native cultures would have to do, getting through the rites of passage. But when I look at Ivanka and when I look at her, she's just this protected, rich girl who has not gone through the rites of passage of unlocking her epigenetics and really appreciating other people who put their bodies at risk. For her, maybe putting her body at risk is like having a baby. Something like that. Even though having a baby has literally zero risk now in the modern day. Literally has like zero risk. The chance of death for women is so low now compared to in the past, or in native cultures. So of course she is proving to be the weak link. That avenue, that little hole in the Trump administration is now the place where where political Satanism is trying to pour its way through. That vortex of evil is trying to pour its way through that gap and infect the Trump administration. We'll be right back after this short break.
When stars are hiding in the clouds, I don't feel them shining. When I can't see beyond my doubt, a silver lining. When I've almost reached the end, like a flood you're rushing in. Your love is rushing in. Light up the sky. Light up the sky to show me you are with me. I can't deny, no I can't deny that you are right here with me. You've opened my heart.
are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, here with Tim, the aging elder, breaking down what is happening in the White House and the breakdown of the White House. We were just talking the other break how the White House is now becoming the house which is not standing for the non-interventionist policies which Trump ran on, but is leaning more to become like a Bush administration, is morphing into into a more disgusting beast. And of course, here in the Washington Post article, Trump also is increasingly embracing more, quote, mainstream. This is what WAPO calls mainstream policy positions championed by daughter Ivanka Trump. See, the liberal lunatics see Ivanka as a hero. That's bad when the communists see your daughter as a hero. Then you know she's doing something wrong. When WAPO is calling her basically a hero, between the lines, this should be a clear sign to Trump that Ivanka is a bad influence, that the American voter did not vote for Ivanka. The American voter wanted to support her when she was getting attacked by Nordstrom and pulling her clothesline, and she was number one on Amazon after that happened. That was fine, because she was not involved in foreign policy starting freaking wars. But even Eric Trump came out admitting that it was partly due to Ivanka Trump's emotional reaction to Syria that Trump was led to make that decision. Of course, it's not all the reason, but it was one part of it. Because Trump is a loving father. He's a protective father who not only wants to protect his nation, but also wants to protect his daughter. But look at what is happening to Trump's administration as he listens to Ivanka, the liberal voice, the communist voice, the political Satanist voice in the White House, and Jared Kushner. Look at what's happening to Trump's rhetoric. He said he's going to be non-interventionist. He's not going to go for regime change. He's not going to go in and get involved in these endless wars that we've been promised we'd end and democracy would come, but every single one has been failed. Every single one in the Middle East. Iraq has failed. Libya has failed. Syria has failed. Afghanistan has failed. Every single one that we've done has failed. You would imagine that after you've destroyed millions, tens of thousands of lives and killed tens of thousands of people, and you keep on failing with so many deaths, you would stop doing the same thing. It's not like the same mistake as kind of burning your hand on a frying pan. I mean, even with one burn on a frying pan, you learn. I guess it's a different thing when you're murdering tens of thousands of people. War after war after war. These politicians just don't learn. They just don't give a crap about all the collateral damage they make, all the deconstructionist, the destabilization that they make. They just don't give a crap. They are doing the puppeteering work of the central banks who want these wars to ravage these countries, put in their communist governments so they can rape farm and human farm the entire population once again. Total wickedness. And of course, Ivanka is proving to be the weak link. On Wednesday alone, Trump flipped from ban and favor positions on issues such as export-import bank and Chinese currency manipulation. That's true. Trump was saying that China is the worst. On the campaign trail, he was saying China is the worst currency manipulators, that they're cheating. Now he's saying, okay, they're not. He said just 2 days ago that he has now changed his view on Syria, even though he said that there would be no intervention. And we bombed them. Of course, Fox News, which is more, not necessarily totally supporting McCain, but on that side, leaning towards that side. Bill O'Reilly's on that side, always wanting to go to war, interventionist. They're very interventionist there at Fox News. And all of them are praising Trump for the 59 minutes. Oh, he showed strength, he showed strength. No, he showed that he acted rashly. He showed that we didn't even do a forensic test on whether or not that was really sarin gas and chemical warfare done by Assad. We didn't even research whether or not it was done by the ISIS. Even the UN couldn't pass that resolution to condemn Syria. Of course, Russia blocked it, but I mean, they couldn't pass it. It didn't show Trump is fast and decisive and act like Obama. It showed that Trump is getting sucked in to what the Bush administration is doing, what these neocons and these establishment left and right wants him to do, which is to be in endless warfare and try to police the entire world and not give people self-determination and freedom to fight for their rights. On Ingram's show Sessions, just talking with Jeff Sessions. Oh, and Trump has not only turned on China being currency manipulators, he's also turned on NATO. Did you see his press conference yesterday with NATO?
Yes.
Trump said NATO was obsolete during the campaign trail. Now he says it's not obsolete. So he is now going back to what they call centrist, which means what that means is Rhino Republican, that means neocon and liberal lunatic left. Two parts of the same coin. The welfare and warfare state. And that is what we warned Trump about. We told him and really set the atmosphere that he should not stay in the White House, but he should stay in his gold tower. Work out of his gold house, not the White House. The White House is a vortex of political intrigue and political infighting and political Satanism. It is a vortex, a central hub of the political Satanism of the world. It is the meeting place of the minds of evil and the psychopathic control freaks. It is the capital of the deep state. Trump does not have to base all its operations out of there. But like an idiot, he stayed in that vortex. And he's not realizing that staying there is starting to eat away at him. And it's starting to make him change from the policies that all the American people wanted him to implement, such as drain the swamp. Now he's talking about, now he's basically saying he's not going to drain the swamp. He's now lifted the ban on federal hiring. He's saying, okay, now federal hiring can be done again. What will that do? Is there a surprise? Come on, let's think. What will that do now? Hey, I guess there'll be more growth in federal government, Tim. He was doing incredibly well in the first 100 days, completing 90% of his promises that he was doing. But ever since that weak link started cracking, Ivanka and Jared Kushner, and he putting more and more trust in them than in people like Steve Bannon and Jeff Sessions, Mattis, and now listening to people like McMaster, who is a warmongering Senator McCain type person. This is a dangerous trajectory. We are going down a slippery slope. Trump is starting to transform, Trump's administration at least, is starting to transform into a beast. That is dangerous. That is something we do not want the president, whom we elected and who works for us, the American people, should do. We are praying that Trump awakens from this idiocy, awakens from this neocon conspiracy against him, because they don't care for him. They're the ones who were against him for the whole time, from the campaign trail. They want to use him and take over his administration so that after he's done, they destroy his name. If he's worried about his Trump brand getting destroyed, this is the way to do it. Because the American people and the people of the world did not, and especially the American citizen who voted for him, did not vote for somebody who is going to be a replacement to Bush and be another neocon, a Trotskyite, and just grow the size of the federal government. He's the one who promised he would drain the swamp. He's the one who promised he would do all the things that was anti-New World Order. And he was doing it for the first 100 days. That's what's so frustrating. He was doing it for the first 100 days. He's blown huge atomic bomb holes in the world governance. But now with him starting to morph into this neocon administration now that is going into warmongering, talks of them now talking about targeting North Korea. I mean, the American people actually, honestly, would support fighting North Korea much more than Syria. I mean, Syria, that's not even an ally. That wasn't even a traditional ally. I mean, at least South Korea has been, South and North Korea, I mean, we have allies there that have been allies with us for the last 60 years. Japan, South Korea, etc. I mean, logically, that makes way more sense than a Syria attack. And then trying to do regime change in Syria, even though he said he's not going to do regime change, he's now pushing towards regime change. I mean, yesterday in an interview with a lady that I saw yesterday, I can't remember where it was from, but Trump did an interview. And he said he's not going to pursue regime change. But that's what he said during the campaign trail. And then he bombed with no evidence after 24 hours, Syria helping ISIS. Doing the bidding of McCain. Look at all the people that are praising him with Syria attack. McCain. Hillary Clinton. Obama. Newt Gingrich. Bill O'Reilly. I mean, all these neocons, these establishment Republicans, and of course lunatic leftists are praising him. That's a bad sign. That is not what we voted for. And Trump has to listen to his voter base, because if he loses his voter base, he will be seen as the biggest Benedict Arnold in the history of the U.S. Because he was turning out to be a George Washington. If he starts going this path of warmongering, it is a quick, slippery slope to becoming evil, to losing the moral high ground, and to losing any semblance of goodness. We'll be right back into the communist Trotskyite neocon eras. He'll just transform into another Bush because they're telling him in his inner circles that he has to transform into Bush for him to get reelected the next cycle. No, no, no. You didn't get elected by listening to those stupid neocons in your administration, Trump. You got elected by listening to Bannon and Jeff Sessions and Rand Paul. This is why you got elected, because they're the ones who are in touch with the reality of the heart of the normal American who's working hard and trying to survive. Not these stupid elitist Ivanka Trumps and Jared Kushners and these stupid elitist McCains and warmongering rhino Republican Trotsky commies and the lunatic left Pelosi and these Hillary Clinton witches. This is not why you got elected. Why are you doing the bidding of them and then now they're praising you? Stop warmongering. Be the president. Stop listening to these commies, right and left, rhino Republican and leftist. Do your job as you promised. Drain the dang swamp and lock her up. Are you not forgetting all those slogans that got you into the presidency, Donald Trump? Get your act together. You had it for the first 100 days. You were doing incredible. We were all applauding you. But now you are slipping and sliding fast. Don't become another Bush. We don't need another Bush. We need a Trump. Trumpet. When the Washington Post is essentially praising you, you know you are in trouble, especially when Jeff Bezos is the owner, whom was an adamant opponent of Trump, cursing him at every corner, and now his newspaper is praising you? Give me a break, Trump. Your voter base is very disappointed in you right now. Don't go the path of warmongering and John McCain and Lindsey Graham and these crazy Republican Rhino Bush administration leftovers. Bring in the true patriots like Rand Paul. Keep Steve Bannon. Bring in the true conservatives, the true libertarians. Stop this insanity. This is not what we voted for. We'll be right back after this short break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Moving on to other top news. Kim Jong-un tests the West. Kim is preparing to detonate a nuclear bomb in a tunnel to mark the Day of the Sun, celebrating birth of North Korea's founding father, Kim Il-sung. That is Saturday. Coming up Saturday. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
On Saturday.
Kim Il-sung is not just the founding presidential father, he's the eternal president of North Korea.
Okay, there it is. U.S. military bosses fear North Korea is ready to detonate a nuclear bomb it has placed in a tunnel. It is believed North Korea is in the final states of preparing for its sixth nuclear test. The dictator pictured today at an open ceremony for a residential complex in Pyongyang is believed to be on the cusp of triggering the blast. North Korea's war threats have sent tremors around the world. Tensions between the U.S. and North Korea are running high. A Voice of America journalist tweeted that U.S. government sources believe North Korea has placed a nuclear device in a tunnel and it would be detonated as early as this weekend. It comes after Washington-based 38th North, a website that monitors North Korea, says satellite images from Saturday showed vehicles and trailers at the Pyongyang test site and signs that communication cables may have been laid to test a tunnel. The think tank said waters appeared to be being pumped out and was draining downhill, presumably to keep the tunnel dry for monitoring and communication equipment. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un is apparently determined to become a nuclear warlord. Satellite pictures show North Korea is about to test a nuclear device. Here's the satellite picture. There's the portal. Probable small vehicles or equipment trailers here. Water being pumped from the portal here. Two probable equipment trailers, cables may be running to the trailers and those to the south. Water being pumped from the portal there. Yesterday, foreign journalists visiting North Korea were told to prepare for a, quote, big and important event today. About 200 foreign journalists are in Pyongyang as the country marks the 105th birth anniversary of its founding President Kim Il-sung on April 15th. North Korea's biggest day, called the Day of the Sun. But today the international media were taken to an event where Kim Jong-un opened a prestige housing project. The Ramyang Street development is a collection of residential tower blocks of various shapes, round, square, and octagonal, with the tallest proclaimed as 70 stories, or 234 meters high, and including nearly 5,000 apartments in total. North Korean leader, tens of thousands of soldiers, officials, and citizens packed a plaza from early morning, waiting in the cold Pyongyang spring air for hours before Kim made his entrance, leading a delegation of senior staff officials and generals onto the platform. Military tensions are running high, with U.S. Navy strike group steaming toward the Western Pacific in a show of force, and North Korea warning of a nuclear attack on the United States at any sign of American aggression. Meanwhile, U.S. military publication Stars and Stripes reports a United States Air Force aircraft that specializes in detecting radioactive debris after the detonation of a nuclear device has arrived on Okinawa in Japan during the weekend. This is a nuke sniffer. There it is, the nuke sniffer plane in Japan. The North Korean nuclear test scare comes just a few weeks after Japan began staging mass evacuation drills after Kim Jong-un test-fired missiles and conducted rocket engine tests on intercontinental missiles. The first exercise of its kind saw civilians, young and old, scrambling for cover as air raid sirens wailed away. As previously reported, Japanese civil defense officials have published pamphlets outlining emergency measures in the event of a nuclear war. Anti-missile rocket batteries also have been stationed in strategic areas, including the capital, Tokyo. Tim, what are your... Let's go to Tim Elder with his thoughts weighing in on this.
Well, this article does not mention China, but I think that's probably the most important place to watch right now, because a day or two ago, a Chinese newspaper, I think the Global Times, which is generally considered to be a mouthpiece of the Chinese Communist Party, published an article in which they said that North Korea should not destabilize East Asia any further, and that if it does, China might take action. And so China may be planning on something if North Korea detonates their nuclear device on Saturday, as is possible. Traditionally in North Korea, they have done things like this to mark the birthday of Kim Il-sung or other important days that they have. Also, I think at the end of this month, around the 27th or 9th, there's the anniversary of the founding of their army. The North Korean People's Army. And so that is another anniversary that North Korean watchers are noting and thinking that maybe North Korea will do something like that, something on that day as well, maybe firing their missiles, or if they can't detonate the nuclear device this weekend, then it may be on that day later this month. So things are really at a... their tensions about as high as they can possibly get right now, and China seems to be convinced this time that the United States is not bluffing, and that the United States really will attack North Korea, and they may do their preemptive attack to preempt the U.S. Or attack or some kind of action in North Korea. Perhaps they will do a decapitation. Perhaps they will remove Kim Jong-un and put in someone who listens to them, is more apt to listen to them. Of course, that's not easy, because the best candidate to be placed in that position, Kim Jong-nam, was assassinated at instructions of Kim Jong-un just a little while ago while he was traveling in Malaysia. We'll have to really, this is a time to be very careful. Probably not a good time to be in Seoul right now. Probably time to get out of Seoul, get out of the northern part of South Korea, because right now anything is possible. An attack may be imminent.
That is what sources are saying from inside the military. that these are sources that actually predicted the Syrian attack at 75%, and then the next day was launched the Syrian attacks. The same sources who have the intel in the White House and throughout the different military organizations are saying that the Trump administration is not only considering, but that a decision is imminent on essentially regime change in North Korea. Now, it's interesting, we were just listening, maybe during the break, was that before the broadcast today, with a interview that Alex Jones was having with Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux talking about the few instances where regime changes, in his opinion, turned out to be good. And what did he say? He said Germany would not
Germany,
Germany
and Japan, after World War II, yes.
Yeah, so even Stefan Molyneux saying at some times there are times where in which regime change can be positive, but on the whole, the majority of the time, it is not stabilizing. And even if, where did I see that today? But even if Assad is taken out, what is a guarantee that someone better will come in? What is a guarantee that there is no guarantee? Because in the Middle East, we've shown time and time again that the vortex is filled. Once that vortex is opened, it's filled with radical jihadi Islam. Because they have the cultural context to guilt shame people into becoming more fanatic Muslim. They don't have a context of pursuing capitalism and pursuing democracy, etc. They don't have that context. The social context is the cultural, religious, social language and culture of the Middle East is dominantly Islam. So you have a higher percentage of that cultural, religious vortex being filled not with Protestant Christianity, but being filled with the flood of radical jihadi Islam, which are who are very willing and able to die for their cause, which we saw in the failed Egypt Arab Spring, we saw in the failed Iraqi war, we saw in the failed Afghanistan war, we saw in the failed Libya regime change, we saw in the continued failure after failure after failure. And we know that Saudi Arabia and Wahhabism, we did a study on that a couple of days ago with Alfred, when Alfred was on from Lebanon, joining us on Monday's broadcast, Monday's show. But Wahhabism and the House of Saud colluding in 1932 establishing this kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but they, of course, Wikipedia they mentioned that they murdered everybody who opposed them. And they were able to, essentially a Bedouin gangster family was able to conquer Saudi Arabia and take it over with a fanatical type of Orthodox Islam, which now, unfortunately, has become the majority. They were the ones who were supporting Osama bin Laden. They were the ones who were supporting Al-Qaeda. They were the ones supporting ISIS, ISIL. They support them not only morally, financially, and of course, warmongers like John McCain and Obama and Hillary Clinton literally go groveling to the Saudi Arabian gangsters, pirates, bowing to them. And they're, of course, arming and helping ISIS, which, of course, Trump is falling into that trap of doing. The globalists and the centralists and the political Satanists want to begin World War III because it's their way out. You can either start in the Middle East or now in East Asia. We are in perilous times, folks. Your life can change in an instant if there's nuclear war. Instant. Instant. Today you're running around going to shop and going out with your friends. Tomorrow, there may be nuclear war. If there's nuclear war, in a day your life can change. In a day, all of a sudden, there's new regulations on you. In a day, there's a curfew. In a day, there's evacuation drills. In a day, just like Japan is already preparing for nuclear war, your life can't change. It's very unfortunate that people don't have the foresight or the discernment to understand that that's true until the dang thing happens. Be awake, be awake. At this time, we are in perilous times. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these. When we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these. When we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love. Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when they're
we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. This Thursday, April 13th, 2017. I'm your host, Hyungjae Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. And let's go now to Tucker Carlson and an amazing turn of events that has happened. Let's take a look at this clip.
About it wore T-shirts, held concerts, flashed countless peace signs. That was then, though. Democrats are now the reflexive party of war, all wars, except those with an obvious benefit to us here in the United States. If there's a humanitarian quagmire on the other side of the globe, they are all for committing troops. And you'd better be for it, too, or they will denounce you. Don't believe it? Ask Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard, you may know, is a Democratic member of Congress from Hawaii. She remembers the lessons of Iraq, perhaps because she served there herself. And she has consistently warned against intervening in Syria. She says it serves no U.S. interest, it will likely empower terror groups, and it could dramatically increase the suffering of civilians there. Now, you might not agree with her point of view, but you cannot call her positions crazy because they're not crazy. But they are still too much for the modern Democratic Party. Just last weekend, she was denounced by none other than Howard Dean, who called her a, quote, disgrace. Do you remember Howard Dean? He's the former peacenik who ran for president in 2004 on the basis of his opposition to the war in Iraq, a war caused in part by false U.S. intelligence reports. Now he's demanding that Tulsi Gabbard leave Congress. Why? Because she dared show skepticism of intelligence reports blaming Assad for last week's chemical attacks and asked for additional proof. That's not allowed. Neera Tanden agrees. She helped manage Hillary's campaign, and she now runs the Center for American Progress. She is so outraged that Gabbard does not support war in Syria that she has called on Hawaii's voters to punish Tulsi Gabbard. Someday we'll figure out exactly how and why the left went crazy, but for now it's obvious they've decided that sending American troops into battle much easier than improving the lives of voters.
And dominating his spot on cable news. And of course there was another one here. Another piece by Tucker Carlson on Fox News. He was last week debating Lansing, Michigan's mayor on sanctuary cities, and apparently this mayor has now considered a reversal of his policy because of his appearance on with Tucker Carlson. They had a very emotional and lively debate last week where the mayor was even blaming Tucker Carlson for being because he's white, he's not able to walk in another person's shoes, even though the mayor is white as well. And Tucker Carlson went on this incredible tirade against him, saying, "You're saying I can't have an opinion because I'm white? What kind of ridiculous argument is that?" And now this guy is back on the show, on Tucker's show. Let's see what happened as we load this video. Having a little bit of trouble. There it is. Okay, here we go.
A week ago, we interviewed the mayor of Lansing, Michigan, Virgil Bernero, regarding his city making itself a sanctuary city. Well, after 100
We having internet troubles there? Looks like we're having internet troubles there. There it is.
happening right now to reconsider this, perhaps because they recognize it could cost them a lot of federal money. Mayor Bernero was just at that meeting, which is still going on, and he joins us now. Mr. Mayor, thanks a lot for coming on. So last time we talked, you explained that you were going to make Lansing basically heaven on earth. I'm maybe overstating a little bit, but just like a great American city by letting a lot more people come there illegally and work for really low wages. It seems like your city council didn't agree. Why didn't they see the brilliance of your plan?
Oh, no, come on now, Tucker. I said nothing like that. I think we're a great city now.
I think you did.
But I must say, I heard from a lot of your fans after I came on, and you do have a great fan base. I think it's wonderful. Look, what we're seeing is democracy in action, Tucker, and this discussion is part of it. I think we should have more conversations where we shed light and not heat, and I appreciate that. That's one thing I appreciate about your show is that people get a chance to talk. You talk about real issues, and council is having a real debate. You know, council heard from the Chamber of Commerce. I work with the Chamber of Commerce on growing business all the time in Lansing, and they're hearing from the people on both sides of the issue. I mean, they had months to do this before, and they were doing it again now, but democracy can be messy. And so, you know, I encourage the debate, and I encourage the debate from among your, you know, your listeners as well. But you know, let's not have ad hominem.
Well, I totally agree. I'm against ad hominem. Try not to engage in it. But why is there any debate when you have an idea as great as yours, just bringing more people illegally? Why would anyone object to that? Like, what are the arguments against that?
Tucker, with all due respect, and I know you're bona fides, you know, you're well-educated in journalism. Come on, we're not, I don't believe, and there's no evidence that we are opening the floodgates to illegals by declaring it a sanctuary city or by declaring non-discrimination in our policing. There's no evidence that's opening the floodgates at all. So one of the things, because people heard you say that, I had to answer people.
They won't come, they will.
Well, I don't give any city benefits. I mean, what we're doing is enforcing the law. And, you know, a group that you should feel close to, the Cato Institute, recently came out with a study that shows, in fact, undocumented workers have a 44% less likelihood of committing crimes than so-called regular Americans. So this idea that there's going to be a crime explosion is just absolute nonsense.
That's the libertarian point of view. That they're more impressive than we are, and so we should just be quiet and accept them. Well, I know that some people believe that. But let me ask you this question.
But it's research, and our policing shows that. I mean, they're not a problem. We police. The other thing about our last...
Wait,
I'm not trying to cut you off, Tucker, but I do want to talk about...
Wait, no, hold on. I can't let you do that.
Well, I do want to talk about the policing.
I'm sure you want to talk about a lot of things, but I just want to back up to what you just said, which is that, yes, they are actually more impressive than we are. Okay, that's a point of view. Let me ask you, has it occurred to you...
I never said they were more impressive. I said they commit
fewer crimes. No, they're better people than we are. I get it. But what if you passed a law protecting the rights of actual citizens of Lansing, saying, hey, you have a right, for example, not to be the victim of a crime committed by someone here legally, or a law looking out for the people who are here legally, who were born here, who didn't sneak in. Do you think the city council would be opposing you on that? I doubt it.
Mr. Carlson, with all due respect, we do this every day. The brave men and women of our police force every day go out and enforce the law equally. They do not profile. They do not discriminate. If you're breaking the law, you're going to be arrested in Lansing, Michigan. You know, we are going to hold, and especially, of course, we triage, so serious crimes are dealt with first. We are a pretty safe city. You know, I'm proud of the efforts that our police department has made. And the new statistics, we haven't even announced yet, but the FBI crime statistics show that we've got another year of progress. So, you know, look, crime is always an issue for every city.
I'm not attacking Lansing. I just don't understand. It's a really simple thing. You say that the people who come here illegally are more morally upright than the people who are born here.
I never said that. I never said that. You're putting words in my mouth. The Cato Institute, I said that the Cato Institute study shows that they commit fewer crimes. That's just a fact. So this idea that we're unleashing criminals is nonsense.
Let me finish my question. So if they're so great, and the Cato Institute study you refer to, I guess, proves that they're better than we are, then why wouldn't your citizens be so excited to have more illegal aliens in their city? Why is it even being debated?
Well, some are excited about the sanctuary city, and some aren't. This is democracy. But I wanted to ask you this last time. I looked at the tape.
Why aren't they excited?
Your president, our president, Trump, said he wanted to get rid of the bad hombres. And I said this to some of the people on my Facebook that answered, that angrily came on. You know, look, the president said he wanted to get rid of the bad ones, the criminals, the rapists he was talking about. But now it seems like they want to go after every single undocumented worker. And no president has tried to do that. I understand President Obama deported some people. I'm not saying nobody should be deported, but this idea that we're going to deport 10 or 11 million people, folks that are here building a better life, I can't go along with that. And I can't allow my police force to be distracted to do immigration enforcement on behalf of the federal government.
And
you guys love local control. What happened to local control?
Right, okay, I get it. Let me just ask you this. Who should be deported? And if you're not alerting federal authorities to the presence of illegal aliens in your community, how can they be deported?
Well, I hope I don't regret this, but let me quote President Trump. He said bad hombres, okay? So let's figure out who are bad hombres. They're the ones who should be deported.
What about drunk drivers?
Criminals. He talked about serious offenders.
Here's an actual question. Here's an actual question. Let's say the Lansing Police Department picks up an illegal alien for drunk driving. That's a bad thing, right? In New York City, that person is not reported to the feds. because their policy is to protect people here who are here illegally before American citizens. Is that your policy too? Would you report a drunk driver here illegally to the feds?
That's a good question that I don't have the absolute answer to. I would think certainly on a second offense they would. I'm just not sure. I'm honestly not sure.
Well, why not? Why aren't you sure? You're the mayor. I mean, what's your position on that? Why would you not deport someone who's driving drunk? Are you serious?
I work with the police chief and the city attorney. I'm not a lawyer myself, but I did issue the executive order.
You're the mayor,
and I'm not sure that a first offense drunk driving would that we would move for deportation for that.
Why? Why?
Because if nobody was hurt, if they agreed to go into a program, to a diversion program,
then
if they agreed to seek treatment.
Like if they didn't actually hit any kids in the crosswalk this time, then it's totally cool.
What would we do if you got caught drunk driving?
I don't know. I'd be punished. And if I was in somebody else's country illegally and I got caught driving drunk, then I'd be in jail and deported.
They'll be punished like anybody else would be punished.
No, they wouldn't be, because you wouldn't report them to the feds and they wouldn't be deported. And they might stick around to do it again, as many have, as you know. So my only point is, maybe your citizens would appreciate it if you thought about them as well as the illegals.
We think about them every day, and that's one of the reasons crime is down. But our citizens do not want to be profiled, and we're not an extension of the federal government.
Actually. Mr. Mayor, thanks for joining us tonight.
You want local control. We are giving you local control.
Okay, and we appreciate it.
There's Tucker. And there's Tucker with the city mayor again arguing about debating with his policy on illegal immigration. Let's go to another video here how do I get back to my main screen here? This is okay, the Fox News site has apparently taken off my main screen. There we go. Mulvaney, we're taking the tax code back to a blank piece of paper. That's some hopeful news. At least he's talking in that direction. Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney said that he plans to strip the federal tax code to its basics and effectively start over. Go big or go home, Mulvaney, a former upstate South Carolina congressman, said on the first 100 days. Mulvaney said President Trump is the first real businessman to inhabit the White House and that such an event should cause the nation to finally be run more like a business. He said his office plans to strip the tax code back to a blank piece of paper and grow it from the ground up. He said such a move is the only way to get back to a healthy economy after several years of anemic growth. Mulvaney also expressed interest in consolidating numerous federal bureaucracies that he found to be redundant to one another. Excellent! Excellent. That all sounds good.
Maybe you could take that blank piece of paper and make that the tax code.
There it is, right there. Let's go to Mulvaney and see his statements, if today our computer allows for that. Are we having trouble playing that video? Now, of course, many people say that Bannon is being blamed for the failure of the Obamacare Light program. And it was interesting. Insider, I saw an interview with Roger Stone yesterday. I heard it as I was, preparing for today. But Roger Stone just said that he had intel sources saying that Bannon was actually not against, that he remained neutral regarding the Syrian strikes, which is kind of strange because he's really a strong non-interventionist. And I don't know why he wouldn't do that. I mean, all the strong interventionists on the freedom side, Rand Paul, many. Oh, there it is. Is this coming up?
I encourage the debate.
Security meeting before that strike, not as a principal, but he was still invited to that meeting.
There we go. Our video is queued. Let's go to our video on the first 100 days.
Debate from among your listeners as well. But let's not have ad hominem.
I totally agree. I'm against ad hominem. Try not to engage in it. But why is there any debate?
We're still getting a feed from the Target Carlson. Hold on. Okay, we're back.
Budget, and he joins me now. Good to have you here, sir. Welcome to the program.
There we go.
this evening.
Martha, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, and I want to get to that in a moment, but I do want to ask you something about an issue that the president made quite a bit of news on today. Just 10 days ago, he said that China was the world's champion currency manipulator, but today it appears that he has a very different take on that. He said they're not manipulating their currency. How do we put those two things together?
I think it's been very difficult in the past for any country to establish trade currency manipulation. It's been very difficult to prove those given the rules that the WTO sets out. So I'm not sure what the president was talking about today, but I don't think it changes our policy. I think he had a really good meeting with China last week. Sounds like there's going to be some good trade developments that come out of that meeting. So I think all things considered, I think the last couple of days have been a tremendous success in terms of our relationship with China.
I think you've touched on something that may be significant here, and that there may have been some developments in that meeting that made him change his language a bit. There may be things he wants to get here, and I guess we're going to see that story unfold as we go through. About how the president is changing his tune on a lot of fronts. But we just watched the Drain the Swamp moment. It was one of many. You are the swamp drainer. And it's your job to do this. I read that there are 43 different agencies in Washington, D.C. that handle workplace training or retraining for jobs. And there's no one person that even oversees the 43 agencies. Is that really going to change?
Yes. And in fact, I think it goes further than that. I think those 43 different programs are spread across 13 agencies. So imagine you're the President of the United States and you don't like the way that those workforce development programs are working. Who do you go talk to? 13 different agency heads? It's very difficult to do that. We have a rule in the private sector, which is that when everybody's in charge, nobody's in charge. And we are going to change that. We had a great meeting here yesterday with some business leaders from all across the country. And one of the things they encourage us to do is to redefine the federal government so that we focus on what it does, not what the agencies' names are or what the committees on the Hill are. But why not put all of the trade functions in one place? Why not put all of the workforce development in one place? It's a tremendous idea, but it's just the first step of draining the swamp, which is a promise the president's absolutely going to keep.
It's just one example, as you point out. There are so many examples across these government agencies, but you know, unfortunately, perhaps for you, you now live and work in the area where most of these federal employees live and work, and they are not too happy with you because they're afraid that, you know, life as they know it, which has been pretty good, is going to change dramatically. That you're going to be held to this standard, whether or not you really revolutionized the way that government works. Are you confident that you're going to succeed in that endeavor?
Yeah, I am, and here's what I tell folks, is that many other presidents have tried this, or at least talked about it, from Reagan to Clinton, even President Obama, I think, talked about doing it, but this is the first time you really have a businessman running the place. We did a hiring freeze when we first got here to sort of give us enough time to sort of get the lay of the land and see how the government was operating, and we just ended that today and put out the guidance because now we've discovered, look, this place can be fixed and needs to be fixed, and here's how we're going to start doing it. It's going to take us about a year to come up with the specific proposals, but you've got a president who is committed to doing this. It's going to be more accountable government, a more efficient government, and a more effective government. And that's what he promised.
Well, I think a lot of people feel there's a lot of bloat and a lot of bureaucracy, and they would love to see that managed a little bit better in Washington with their tax dollars. Before I let you go, a story today that says that you all have been meeting on tax reform and that the model for corporate tax reform might be changing. The president talked about going from 35% to as low as 20 or 15%. Is that not what we're going to get right now? The markets will be very interested in that. And is it now more about a tax, a 10% tax on repatriation, bringing back funds to the United States? Can you explain?
I guess I can't explain because these sort of raise two different issues, but the bottom line is that tax discussions have been going on since we got here in January. I've been participating in a group that's being led by Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, and Gary Cohn at the NEC to talk about all sorts of different ideas, and all of the issues that you've just raised have been discussed, from corporate tax reform, individual tax reform, how do you repatriate earnings overseas. We don't have a policy yet. We don't expect to have a policy yet for the next couple of weeks in terms of specifics statistics that we can trot out and show to people, but we're taking a very deep dive right now in all aspects of our tax code under the theory, go big or go home. We are not looking to sort of play around on the edges on tax reform in this country. We want to do much the same thing we just talked about on restructuring the government. We want to take the tax code back to a blank piece of paper and rebuild it from the ground up in the proper fashion in order to help people get back to work. That's what's driving all of this. How do you fix government so that folks can have optimism again and have job opportunities again and not get stuck in this 1.9% anemic growth we've had for the last 8 years under the Obama administration? We're trying to get back to an America that has a healthy economy, puts people to work, and grows so that folks have opportunity. That's what's driving all of our work, including tax reform.
All right, before I let you go, I'm going to take one more quick crack at this. You know, corporations and small business owners around this country listening to your words right now are listening to you very carefully. Are they going to get meaningful corporate tax cuts from this administration?
Okay, then they can listen to this very closely. Yes.
Okay. We heard it right here. Mick Mulvaney, thank you very much, sir. You got a lot on your plate. We appreciate you stopping by. Good to see you tonight.
Thanks, Mark.
The question, how many federal agencies are there? You get an answer that tells you that basically nobody knows. It depends on who you ask. It can be 60, it can be 115, it can be 252, it can be 316, it can be 257, or it can be 89. It's crazy. Nobody even knows how many federal agencies there are.
Insane. Wow, that is super surprising. That is ridiculous. And here it is. Here is the NATO talk yesterday. The latest Trump says NATO no longer obsolete, changing his tune again. President Donald Trump has done an about-face on NATO, the military alliance he once dismissed as ineffective. Trump says at the White House news conference with NATO Security General Hans Jens Stoltenberg that the Jens Stoltenberg that the organization is no longer obsolete. As a candidate, Trump said the 28-member organization had outlived its usefulness. Since taking office, he has expressed support for NATO, but has reinforced his view that European members must meet a 2014 agreement for member countries to boost defense spending to 2% of GDP within a decade. Just the U.S. and a handful of other countries are meeting the target. Trump says NATO countries will be more secure and partnerships strengthened if other countries pay for their fair share and stop relying on the United States. President Donald Trump is saying he may reshuffle some of his major domestic policies. These are notes from the meeting. Domestic priorities. After Republican leaders pulled their health care bill back from a House vote last month, Trump signaled that he was ready to move on to tax overhaul and other issues. But on Wednesday, Trump said on Fox Business Network that he'd rather move to health care first. That's despite an ongoing impasse between GOP hardliners and moderates. I have to do health care first, said Trump. I want to do it first to really do it right. Without spending cuts in the health care bill, it's much harder for Republicans to cut taxes without adding to federal deficits. Tax reform and tax cuts are better if I can do health care first, Trump said. At 9:45 a.m., President Trump will welcome Argentina's President Mauricio Macri into the White House at the end of April. And the White House says that April 27th visit will give the leaders a chance to discuss ways to deepen the close partnership between the U.S. and Argentina. Okay, that was going backwards, actually. That was going backwards. But Trump discussing with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. Essentially saying that he's going to change his view on NATO, calling it a obsolete organization, and now calling it a non-obsolete organization, that it is no longer obsolete. It's really interesting. Trump, when he makes these statements where he's flipping, it's very interesting how he does. I've heard now him do this on a couple things, whether it be Syria, whether he had NATO,
Chinese money, foreign currency manipulation.
Right. Whether it's that when he flips on this, it's weird. He doesn't even try to explain it. He just says, and no longer NATO is no longer obsolete. I said that he had admitted. He said, I said NATO was obsolete, but now it's no longer obsolete. I mean, that's all he said. He won't even give an explanation. So that leaves you pondering, what is his motive? What is his change of heart? How is that coming? Is it simply because he's receiving new information? Is it because he was clueless to geopolitics, and now even though he's done business all over the world, and now all of a sudden he's coming into new information which is making him more enlightened about geopolitics, relinquishing all his views that got him elected, that people are feeling the frustration of having all these remnants of the World War II and the hegemony of the West and of American imperialism covering the earth. And where that is coming from. Why are these? It almost feels like in the last week, literally the last week, ever since the Syria bombing, he has changed his position on major issues. It remains to be seen whether or not he will be continuing as he's working with China. China seems to be having better rhetoric. Of course, many in Washington are cautioning Trump, do not trust the Chinese. They lie through their teeth. Every single hole they have through their teeth, they lie through it. And they may be talking that they're saying that they'll nuke North Korea and their nuclear facilities. But then, of course, calling Trump on Wednesday, that is yesterday, telling him that they want a peaceful resolution, they will change and flip-flop in an instant, depending on the mood. Unfortunately, many times that's like Asian culture. I guess Asian politics runs in Asian culture because they're in Asian culture doing Asian politics. But Trump not really giving an explanation for why he thinks or why his views are so radically changed since the campaign. But just leaving the American public just kind of wondering what is going on and seeing that he's becoming influenced by the establishment, which is worrying for the American person. Go ahead, Tim. You want to chime in on that real quick?
Well, I can understand. In my own mind, I can rationalize a couple of those changes. Not that I agree with them, but I can rationalize, for example, in Syria, he saw the pictures of dead babies, and maybe as president, you get exposed to a lot more evil than you were before you were president. You see pictures of dead babies, sometimes babies other people killed, sometimes babies that you killed. On the China thing, I hope that there was some kind of arrangement that they came to in Mar-a-Lago between Trump and Xi Jinping, saying that the U.S. will pull back on this money foreign exchange thing in return for some action by China on North Korea, and I hope that the Chinese are actually following through on it. Maybe, of course, China wants a peaceful resolution. Probably means we don't want this to develop into a nuclear war because we're not ready to fight you. Is probably what China was saying in that phone call. NATO thing, I don't understand. I have no clue as to why he would make that change.
It seems like he's making very big shifts in this administration's nature and its general outlook on how they will govern. We'll be right back after the short break, breaking this down. Stay with us. We'll see you on the other side.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, returning back to another article entitled Nuclear Option, America at War, DC Establishment Delights. Delighting the DC establishment. Remind me again, who is the impulsive, trigger-happy, pugnacious brute who cannot be trusted with nuclear codes? Well, it's Donald Trump, according to the universal bipartisan proclamations from establishment Washington lifers, who broke into such hysterics over a gauche real estate titan who thought he could do their job better than them. These people should know, considering that they're the same people who have managed to keep America at a constant state of war for about 15 years now. These people cannot agree on pretty much anything else, but of course war. But spending gobs of money policing the world with never-ending foreign wars, they suddenly break out into hot, pulsating bipartisanship. So perhaps it should come as little surprise that these people who so loathed Donald Trump, the candidate, are so thrilled with Donald Trump, the president, for firing 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles into a Syrian civil war that American voters are pretty adamant about staying out of. The sudden applause for Mr. Trump came from the strangest corners of the political world. The Senate's renegade rogue Republicans, John McCain and Lindsey Graham, ardent foes of Mr. Trump during the campaign, commended him for his warrior bluster. Unlike the previous administration, President Trump confronted a pivotal moment in Syria and took action. They said, for that he deserves the support of the American people. Even Senator Marco Rubio, famously dubbed Little Marco, cheered the president for acting decisively. Quote, President Trump has made it clear to Assad that those who empower him that the days of committing war crimes with impunity are over, Little Marco said. Across the aisle, even Democrats were gushing over the expensive military intervention. Making sure Assad knows that when he commits such despicable atrocity, he will pay a price is the right thing to do, Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer. Charles Schumer also praised him. Yeah, I'm sure he cares about the dead babies. Even Hillary Clinton hopped aboard the Trump train for bombing Syria. Her only complaint seemed to be that Mr. Trump may not have gone far enough. She said, I believe that we should have and still should take out his airfields and prevent him from being able to use them to bomb innocent people and drop sarin gas on them, she said. This is the same Hillary Clinton who warned us in the most alarming terms during the campaign that under no circumstances should Mr. Trump be trusted with America's war-making arsenal. This is not someone who should be ever trusted with a nuclear code, she said last summer. It's not hard to imagine Donald Trump leading us into war just because somebody got under his very thin skin. Well, apparently Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad got under Mr. Trump's very thin skin, and Mrs. Clinton's only complaint now is he didn't go far enough. Very poignant points. Ann Coulter, Lassie Come Home, in an article at Breitbart. War is like crack for presidents. It confers instant gravitas, catapulting them to respectability, bypassing all station stops. They get to make macho pronouncements on a topic where every utterance is seen as august. On the other hand, Trump's Syrian misadventure is immoral, violates every promise he ran on, and could sink his presidency. Oh well, Ann Coulter is right on it. Left to his own devices, uncontaminated by Washington groupthink, Trump gets it right. Back in 2013, when Obama was being egged on to attack Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in response to alleged chemical weapons attacks far more sweeping than this, the latest one, Trump tweeted, "What will we get for bombing Syria besides more debt and possible long-term conflict? Obama needs congressional approval. Be prepared, there is a small chance that our horrendous leadership could unknowingly lead us into World War III. If the U.S. attacks Syria and hits the wrong targets, killing civilians, there will be worldwide hell to pay. Stay away and fix broken U.S." On the campaign trail, Trump repeatedly stated that he had no interest in starting World War III over Syria, saying, "We have bigger problems than Assad." His position was, let Syria and ISIS fight. I look at Assad, and Assad looks better than the other side. Trump was right on every point. Assad is one of the least bad leaders in the entire Middle East. He's not a murderous thug like Saddam, has no rape rooms, isn't into jihad, protects Christians, and is fighting ISIS. He provided us with intelligence on Al-Qaeda after 9/11. He does not have crazy Islamic police slapping women around or throwing gays off buildings. That would be our beloved ally, Saudi Arabia. Trump was also correct about Assad's opponents being far worse, containing large helpings of both ISIS and Al-Qaeda. As awful as it was to see those dead children, Trump knew that America's first duty is to our own children. We have never succeeded at turning a third world dictatorship into a paradise. The history of these things is that removing a Middle Eastern strongman always makes things worse. For example, in Iran, Iraq, Libya, and Egypt. We leap in thinking we're helping the poor devils under the thumb of a dictator. And then the new tribe takes over and oppresses everyone else, usually much more brutally, while hating us even more than the old tribe did. If voters wanted more Middle Eastern wars, there are plenty of other candidates offering that. Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Carly Fiorina, and Hillary Clinton, for example. And we must never forget Jeb Bush, though it proved surprisingly easy to do so in 2016. But we picked Trump. While most of the left wailed about the return of Nazi Germany under Trump, savvier liberals saw his vulnerability flattery. All we have to do is praise him. You'll be shocked at how easy it is. And boy, did they lay it on thick with the Syrian misadventure. No sucker's bait was left on the floor. Cable news host gushed. Trump became president of the United States tonight on MSNBC. Brian Williams caught the bombing beautiful 3 times in less than a minute. Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the women of the Senate, according to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, compared Trump to Reagan. The New York Times headlined an article on Syria attack. Trump's heart came first. My nightmare scenario, Trump and Jared watching TV together and high-fiving. Did you see the news? They love you. All Trump had to do was pointlessly bomb another country, and it was as if a genie had granted him his every wish. Looking for some upside to this fiasco? Desperate Trump supporters bleeding the bombing Assad and sent a message to North Korea. Yes, the message is, the Washington establishment is determined to manipulate the president into launching counterproductive military strikes. Our enemies, both foreign and domestic, would be delighted to see our broken country further weaken itself with pointless wars. There it is. Was America strengthened by the Iraq War? The apparently never-ending Afghanistan war? Vietnam? This is how great powers die, which is exactly what the left wants. Administration policy was heading in the wrong direction at 90 miles an hour, but thank God Trump seems to have grabbed the steering wheel and hit the brakes, notwithstanding the hopes and dreams of Clausewitzian military strategist Nikki Haley. We will not be engaging in regime change in Syria or starting World War III with Russia today. We want the president of America back, not the president of the world. A very scathing, critical, yet powerful and witty article by Ann Coulter. The Pulitzer is the new participation trophy. Failed anti-Trump journals receive media's highest honor. The New York Times has won the Pulitzer Prize in international reporting for their Russian scaremongering in 2016. This leads to one question. Are the Pulitzers anything more than a booby prize for the opposition party election losers? According to the Pulitzer website, the New York Times won for agenda-setting reporting on Vladimir Putin's efforts to project Russia's power abroad, revealing techniques that included assassination, online harassment, and the planting of incrimination evidence on opponents. In 2 short years, we've gone from feminists testifying to the United Nations about online harassment to a Pulitzer awarded for coverage on online harassment. What a world we live in. This isn't an isolated case either. David Fahrenthold won the Pulitzer Prize in national reporting for trolling Trump over charitable contributions. Fahrenthold also helped break the Pussygate story, which only the Pulitzer Committee actually remembers, etc. Just another pathetic, fake prize and useless prize. The Pulitzer showing themselves to be completely biased and political Satanists in nature. We'll be right back in our final segment after this short break. Stay with us. See you on the other side.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report on our final segment. I'm your host, Hyungjin Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. And back to our news. United Airlines vows not to call police on passengers as CEO apologizes for the fiasco where they dragged a passenger off the plane. United Airlines said it will no longer call on law enforcement to remove paid and seated passengers who have not agreed to give up their places on sold-out flights. One of several moves the airline announced Wednesday to try to quell a week of consumer outrage. The Chicago Airlines chief executive Oscar Munoz told ABC News Good Morning America on Wednesday morning that he felt shame when he watched a video of the passenger Dr. David Dow, dragged off a sold-out United flight bound for Louisville, Kentucky on Sunday by Chicago Air Police. United has said it needed to bump 4 passengers to make room for airline employees who needed to travel to Louisville. The airline reportedly offered $400 and a hotel stay, and then $800 to passengers to induce them to give up their seats. When there were no volunteers, United selected Dow and other passengers to get off the plane. Dow refused, prompting airport police to pull him screaming from his seat. Also on Wednesday, what was that, Tim? You want to chime in on this real quick?
Just that the Veritas Project had a very good video that they put out, I think, yesterday or the day before on this, talking about the effects of citizen journalism, because the point he made that this kind of thing always happened in the past as well. But now people know about it. There's greater transparency because someone is there taking a video of it with their cell phone and putting it online.
It was amazing. I mean, I saw it. They were dragging him through the aisles, and literally his shirt was off, half off his.
And he was bloody. His face was bloodied. Yes.
Wow. So he was also bloody.
Yeah.
And all the people in the passenger seats, they're seeing him dragged, and like you see these ladies and these men, they're like, what? They're like, what's going on? They're like, what the hell are they doing? This is like a freaking police state. Unbelievable. On Wednesday, Chicago Department of Aviation put 2 more officers who were involved in the onboard fracas on administrative leave, joining an officer who was suspended earlier. The passenger, Dow, took steps that could be a prelude to a lawsuit, and President Trump weighed in on the car. He should definitely sue them. During his interview, Munoz apologized to Dow, his family, passengers on the plane. Apologies not enough. Sue the fools. Later Wednesday, United said all customers on the flight are receiving compensation for their tickets' cost. They're going to pay a lot more than that. Such moves are the right first step, branding experts said, but they believe the airline will have to do a lot more to regain the trust of customers. They have so destroyed the connection and trust they've built up over the years, said Eric Schiffer, chief executive of reputation management consultants in Irvine. And it wasn't just the beatdown of a customer that everyone could project themselves being. It was a response afterwards, which was so cold and done with such a lack of empathy, it made people believe they just don't care. After the videos and photos of Dow's removal from the plane generated public outrage, Munoz initially said in a letter to employees that the 69-year-old physician from Elizabethtown, Kentucky, was a belligerent customer who refused to comply with requests to give up his seat. Munoz apologized to Dow in subsequent statements, calling the incident a truly horrific event. In Wednesday's interview, Munoz said his initial words fell short of truly expressing what we were feeling. Munoz said the airline will conduct a deep and thorough review of many of its policies related to this, including the incentives offered to give up seats once people are on board an aircraft. If no one chooses to leave the plane despite the compensation offered, Munoz said United will not put a law enforcement official on the plane to take them off. To remove a book-paid seated customer, we can't do that, he said. This change could spread to other airlines, analysts said. It just seems like something that is rare enough where there's a lot of upside to be able to promise passengers that this is not going to happen to you and it's not costly to do so. There's just no downside to doing this. In 2016, the airlines posted an involuntary bumping rate of 62 per million passengers, down from, okay. So a very shocking video and of citizen journalism that has come up and is going to pay good rewards for flight people who are taking flights on those airplanes, making them more accountable and more transparent. So that is absolutely true. Gainesville police search for a murder suspect as a teen kills himself. Wait a minute. That headline had changed. That headline just changed. It's teen killed himself by accident on a live Facebook posting.
Or
Instagram posting. That title, it's so weird. That title just changed.
I still have it.
That title, what's the title of that?
Teen accidentally kills himself. His friends watch on Instagram.
That's what it was.
Live. Is
That's
that
what it was. That thing changed. Apparently, he was playing around with a gun, which he got from a friend who got it from another friend.
I can go through the article if you like. I have it here.
Yeah, well, no, I have the article,
Okay.
but we have just
All
a
right.
little bit of time. I just want to breeze through this real quickly. And somebody said, essentially, hey, why don't that gun have a clip in it? And he put it in. As he put the clip in, boom, the idiot was pointing it to his head or something, and he ended up getting shot.
Never point a gun at something you don't want to destroy.
There it is. He had no understanding of discipline of the barrel. Always assuming that the gun is loaded. Of course, not even getting any proper training. Trump and Xi, tensions turn into friendship. President talks about great chemistry with China's president in journal interview. We have a very good relationship, he said. In a Wall Street Journal interview in the Oval Office, we have great chemistry together. We like each other. I like him a lot. I think his wife is terrific. And, of course, Trump getting Xi to say that he will take larger steps in controlling North Korea and or possibly even nuking them. But, of course, as warnings have come, believing the Chinese is very, very hard.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Murdoch's also assessed the O'Reilly damage, as O'Reilly has been accused
Of
sexual harassment.
Harassment, yes.
A great fallout, leading to many, many ads being pulled out. Bill O'Reilly apparently left Fox News this week for a long-planned vacation to Italy and the Vatican, with his fate in the hands of a Murdoch family calculating the risk and reward of keeping him on or forcing him out of the network. Of course, he's still dominating cable, and his ratings actually went up
Yes, advertising
after
went down,
this.
but ratings went up.
That's right. So they are between a rock and a hard place. He does dominate that slot and completely dominates his, and he's been doing it for the last 16 years or so. So it remains to be seen how the Murdoch family and Fox will deal with Bill O'Reilly. And of course, back to our first article with North Korea. We are in such perilous times and such chaotic times, folks. And as we were speaking with our Korean members in a Korean service yesterday, we actually covered the book of Revelation and the Four Horsemen, which we haven't covered with them in Korean, in the Korean service. We will be broadcasting our Wednesday service. Tim will be leading the Wednesday King's Report in English, and we will be leading the Korean service on Wednesday in Korean, obviously. There are some requests to do the King's Report in Korean on Wednesday, so that is something we may discuss due to the fact that the Koreans also want to develop their own political discernment and understanding of current events and how to discern them from a standpoint of political godism and God's perspective. So that is something we'll look into. For the current time being, on Wednesdays, we'll be broadcasting live the King's Report in English, with the Korean service coming at 10:30. For those who join us today on this Thursday, April 13th, 2017 edition of the King's Report, we thank you for joining us. We pray God's blessings upon you. Pray for our president. Pray for the world. We pray not for more wars and more warmongering. We pray for peace. We pray for stability. We pray for the ability for our president to focus on redeveloping America to become the benevolent superpower of the world, showing the example and being the light on top of the hill, so that all other nations can also pursue that vision of freedom and responsibility. Trump's main promises are draining the swamp and reducing the federal load and the burden of the federal bureaucracy, tax cuts, all of those things that he promised. We pray that he continues to deliver on those things and withdraw from these unconstitutional attacks that he's doing that are going against his campaign promises. We pray that he has a moment of reflection, that he's able to come back into his conscience and to the promises he's made, in front of the whole world, releasing it in the atmosphere with the American people, not only but the world, and providing a stable U.S. that can bring the world into more blessing, not into more danger and peril. Of course, we know also we are in the time of tribulation. In the time of tribulation, in past the midterm of the tribulation, we see that there is greater collapse with the 7 bowls, and there is more suffering of the world. If that's true, then we pray that that is also swift, and that we can pass through that quickly, so that the end of tribulation may come, and the long-awaited millennial kingdom of Christ, God's kingdom on earth, can begin. Once again, we give all glory to God and praise to Him who deserves it. We thank you for joining us today again on the King's Report. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.